Hey guys, tonight we slip through stone walls into a world where silence hums louder than any chant. Picture this: your fingers brush cold parchment in a room lit by 3 swaying candles. Every scratch of the quill feels like defiance against the dark. Medieval convents weren't just prayer factories. By the way, they were artistic powerhouses, rigged with ink pots and insomnia. If you think pulling an all-nighter for a work project's rough, try illuminating biblical scenes with squirrel hair brushes under a vow of eternal patience. Let's get real, you wouldn't last a week here. No Wi-Fi, no espresso shots, just goose-fat candles that reek like a butcher's back alley. 12-hour prayer sessions before even touching the vellum. Speaking of which, ever heard of parchment stretch goals? Nuns soaked sheepskin in lime pits for weeks, scraping hairs off until the sheets gleamed like moonlight. Historical fact incoming: over 400 European convents housed scriptoria where women redefined sacred art. Yet, most history books reduce them to anonymous scribes. Rude. Here's a fun tidbit: they mixed ink with crushed lapis, lazuli stolen from traders. Imagine risking excommunication for that perfect celestial blue. You're not just painting, you're committing holy burglary. Each manuscript became a covert act of rebellion. Those delicate floral borders, secret shout-outs to pagan goddesses their abbess definitely wouldn't approve of. Historians still argue whether those vine-wrapped initials were devotion or quiet dissent against church sausage fists. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time below. Let's map where in the world this story's resonating. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Breathe in, that's beeswax and iron gall ink stinging your nostrils. Your neck prickles as you hunch over a desk smaller than a cafeteria tray. Moonlight bleeds through horn windows, warping your shadow into something gargle-adjacent. Across the room, Sister Marguerite sneezes into her sleeve. A droplet of vermilion ruins a cherub's cheek. Her muffled curse sounds suspiciously like a psalm. Rule number 1 of Scriptorium Club: no sudden movements. You're grinding malachite into powder now. The pestil's rhythm syncs with Compline prayers drifting upstairs. Green stains your cuticles for weeks. No one tell the abbess you pocketed leftover gold leaf to gild your toenails last Christmas. The real challenge: drawing perfect circles freehand. Both compasses and vanity are banned. Apparently geometry inflames sinful pride. Your last attempt at a halo looked like a drunk moose trampled the page. Listen closer. That's not just your heartbeat. Someone's humming a troubadour tune under her breath. Hereticor playlist, circa 1323. Defiant little melodies seep into the filigree. A saint's robe curls into musical notation, visible only if you squint. You wonder if the bishops noticed the dragon in the margin, nibbling his mitre. Don't laugh. Novices get docked wine rations for lesser crimes. Hours dissolve like sugar in communion wine. Your candle's drowning in its own wax. Time to poke the wick with a threaded needle. The psalter you're copying demands 72 shades of red. Each hue requires a different alchemy. Madder root, cochineal beetles, that sketchy pink powder brother Matthias trades for lavender sachets. Between verses, you doodle a tiny self-portrait in the O of omniscientum. Vanity, thy name is medieval hustle. Dawn's first gray fingers creep through the cloister. Ink freezes in its pot. You warm hands on the chafer's brazier. Someone's brought honey cakes stolen from the refectory. Crumbs nestle in the choir marks. Tomorrow's problem. Your spine crackles like kindling when you stand. The bells will ring for lauds soon, but for now, the letters pulse on the page. Each stroke a whispered I exist. Wind rattles the shutters, or is that a ghost? Legend says Sister Adela's spectre still edits typos in unfinished manuscripts. Check any herbal compendium. See if the cure for gout written in hand 13% wobblier than the rest. Maybe she's why your P keeps slanting northeast. The abbess would call it sloth. You know better, it's collaboration across centuries. Hold that thought, we're just getting started. Tomorrow's shift. Let's just say you'll learn why weasel-urine was the medieval whiteout. For now, let the candle smoke curl around you like a borrowed cloak. Those gold-leafed saints can wait, sleep comes for us all. Even the ones who paint paradise one grumpy angel at a time. You kneel on cold chapel stone as dawn leaks through stained glass, the air, thick with incense and sleep deprivation. Across Europe's convents, days split like cracked parchment. Matins at midnight, lauds at cockcrow, prime when frost still grips the fields. Benedictine rule demands 7 prayer hours, but you've memorized the loophole. Those same hands clasped in vespers will later grip squirrel hair brushes, slipping devotion into every illuminated. Oh, your scriptorium hides behind the laundry, where eavesdropping's drowned by sloshing suds. Here, polished oak desks hold secrets. Vellum scraped so thin it whispers, quills sharpened with blasphemous precision. The prioress pretends not to notice when wax drips onto your habit. Your real uniforms the ink-stained cuticle, the spine curved like a drawn bow. A malcontent giggles as she grinds lapis into powder, blue dust catching her eyelashes. Coptic binding thread doubles as hair ribbons. Who needs rouge when crushed madder root stains your thumbprint's russet tread? Historians tally convent populations by parish records, but we've lost count of the doodles. A nun's inky fingerprint circling a psalm, a chess knight prancing through proverbs. Dinner brings its own alchemy. Porridge bowls moonlight as ink dishes. Someone's always licking vermilion off a spoon. You trade goose feathers for favors, smuggle oxgall through the larder. Ever tried singing graces while mentally mixing azurite gum? One sister nearly choked on a pea, picturing the abbess as a particularly judgmental seraphim. Nightfall cracks the illusion. Your sewing basket hides the half-painted book of Judith, her sword raised not against Holofernes, but the complacency of quietism. Candlelight bends the walls into confessionals. Is that shadow sister, Agatha checking for curfew, or a collaborator nodding at your subversive use of gold leaf? The debate simmers like overheating rabbit glue. Were these women dutiful scribes or covert radicals encoding rebellion in arabesques? Hidden in a Swiss psalter, a nun's marginal note complaining about Brother Florian's tuneless chanting. Under a Dutch breviary's floral border, wine stains shaped like a wolf's head. Coincidence or medieval shitposting? You ink a dragon eating its own tail in Ezekiel's margins. Downstairs, the office of Compline drones. Tonight's hymn accidentally syncs with your brushstrokes. Sleep, that's for women who don't understand how ultramarine shimmers brighter at midnight. Your knuckles ache. Your God smiles in geometric precision, in the way you've spaced these letters like breaths between prayers. In the cellar, a novice experiments writing psalms on pressed lily petals. They'll disintegrate by epiphany, but isn't that the point? Historians still argue whether convent art was defiance or devotion. Maybe it was simpler, a refusal to let heaven monopolize beauty. Tomorrow's matins loom. For now, there's just this, the lethal focus of a woman who's tasted ink and found it holier than silence. You stir a dish of yolk and honey, medieval Photoshop, adjusting opacity. Pigments bloom under your touch. Malachite from river rocks, white lead scraped off abbey walls. Vellum stretches tight as a drumhead, its surface sanded with pumice stolen from the bathhouse. Each scrape whispers rebellion. Who decided saints needed smoother skin than living women? Your brush flicks a spiral border 3 hairs wide. Gold leaf clings to walnut oil like sunlight on pond scum. Novices call it divine sparkle. You know it's mostly rabbit urine. The scriptorium reeks of ammonia and ambition. Someone's always accidentally pocketing guilts for their book of hours. Monks claim only men can handle lapis lazuli, but you've smuggled chunks in your wimple since Easter. Crushed azurite becomes midnight skies, a pinch of gypsum turning it stormy. Historians adore your cobalt blues. They'll never mention the wine stains blurring Ezekiel's lions. That smudge, definitely a grape, not a botched demon's face. Between gospels, you doodle a bishop with donkey ears. Let future scholars call it liturgical humor. You're just following Benedict's rule. Idle hands tempt the devil. Egg tempera dries fast. No time for second thoughts. A dot of vermilion becomes a martyred tear. Vermilion's expensive, so you spike it with crushed brick dust. The prioress frowns at such shortcuts, but even she admires how blood-red hues deepen under candle flame. Always the paradox, sacred art born from stolen moments and smuggled chalk. Gold leaf theft hits crisis levels by Advent. Sisters hide flakes under fingernails, later trading them for extra psalm assignments. You catch a novice licking residue off her desk. "It tastes like God's tinfoil," she insists. The abbess installs an iron-bound chest. By epiphany, someone's forged a key from a crucifix nail. A fumbled quill sends droplets spreading across Mary's robe. Disaster becomes inspiration. You paint the Virgin standing in a crimson pond. Critics will later call it a bold metaphor for menstrual divinity. Truth, sheep-gut bladders leak. Perfection's overrated, though you'd never admit it during confession. Winters are worst. Frost etches the vellum, your breath warms brushes to prevent cracking. One sister writes psalms in melted snow, ink diluted to ghostly gray. Her lamentations of ice sublimates before prime. You pretend not to notice when tears freeze her eyelashes mid-blink. The Herod of Hohenberg gambit, illustrating heresies just to debate their flaws. Your job scene includes a camel wearing a papal tiara, subtleties for monks with spare parchment. Historians still argue whether medieval nuns understood their subversive power. You'd laugh if chortling didn't waste good spit for paint mixing. Sunrise leaks through the scriptorium's sole window, another all-nighter blurring prayer and pigment. You've matched the exact green of rotting oak leaves. The other sisters call it verdant grace. You know it's mold from the refectory cheese. God works in mysterious textures. A dropped brush cracks Mary Magdalene's face. The flaw becomes a beauty mark with strategic gold dots. Happy accidents, the abbess calls them. You call it covering your ass with holiness. Downstairs, they're singing lauds. Up here, your choir's the scratch of quill on hide. A hymn only broken nails understand. Your thumbnail traces a doodle barely visible under Psalm 91's text. A snail jousting a knight. Marginalia. The scholars will coo medieval emojis smuggled into Holy Writ. You press harder, carving your own contribution. A rabbit roasting a monk over spit. The quill's tip snaps. Sacrilege sharpens best on cheap nibs. Vellum margins breathe where text suffocates. Here, between verses on chastity, dragons, not bishop-shaped cookies. There, beside a hymn, a fox baptizes bewildered geese. Your favorite, a nun riding a giant squirrel into battle. Historians will dedicate conferences to its allegorical meaning. You just liked squirrels. Medieval memes thrive in parchment gutters. A hedgehog rolls in grapes you swiped from communion wine. Ink drips form devil horns on St. Jerome's lion. Classic move, every scribe knows lions can't tattle. The prioress inspects pages weekly. Her eyes skip right past the doodles. Focus on the word, she drones. Jokes hide best where piety blinds. Your secret weapon, beetle-wing dye. Crushed emerald elytra shimmer in a Jude's beard. Turn the page and he's winking. Tomorrow's nuns will debate if it's a miracle. Tonight, it's just you and pilfered pantry pests. Mainstream fact, incoming, hold your yawns. Over 90% of surviving books of hours contain marginal doodles. Yours will join the club. That snail. Official scholarship claims it represents humility's victory over pride. You drew it after Sister Agnes stole your honey for gilding. Let them spin their theories. Fringe alert. Some nun artists allegedly hid menstrual blood in red initials. You test the hypothesis. A drop from yesterday's cramps blooms vibrant on Gabriel's robe. Not bad. Quick, add a wyvern sipping from the stain. Now it's symbolic Eucharist. Crisis averted. Gold leaf scraps morph into duck-shaped constellations above Moses. A heretic's fingerprint smudges Leviticus. You outline it into a dancing bear. Each fixer-upper doodle chips away at perfection's tyranny. The abbess praises your devotional focus. If only she'd check the Ezekiel page. There's a full mouse wedding procession in the capitals. Moonlight reveals your masterpiece. A border of monks vomiting alphabet soup. Historians still argue whether marginalia were silent protests or stress relief. Pourquoi nolo's dues. Your aching wrist votes for option 3, sheer boredom during terse prayers. A novice gasps at your Jonah scene, whale's belly filled with playing cards. Is that the devil's 21? She whispers. You hum a non-answer. Let the girl think you've seen hell's casinos firsthand. Fear breeds good Lenten behavior. Dawn approaches. Your final touch, a tiny self-portrait in Jeremiah's tear. Brush hairs form a wimple. Iris pigment matches your fugitive azurite stash. 7 centuries later, conservationists will x-ray it and sob at the lost artistry. You're just glad the abbess never noticed her missing lapis, lazuli. The bell for matins jars your elbow. A crimson streak bisects Solomon's temple. No matter. By noon, it'll be a flaming sword held by a snail. Your legacy. Holy texts armored in inside jokes, and 1,000 academics cursing your playful ambiguity over terrible conference coffee. Your knuckles crack like sapling branches as you dip the brush gold leaf clinging to calluses earned in devotion's furnace. Chanting echoes through stone prime terse. Nun, your wrist sways to Latin rhythms, even in silence. 8 prayer services daily, 7 psalm recitations, 3 hours of illumination. The math never lies. Holiness lives in repetition's blisters. Witness the scriptorium's secret ballet. Left hands smooth vellum, while right hands loop minuscule G's. A tandem honed by decades of copied gospels. Your neighbor's quill dances a staccato scratch-scratch swoop. Yours prefers the lazy glide of split-reed pens. Tools matter. Sister Juliana swears by raven feathers, says their curve mirrors the Holy Spirit's descent. You stick to goose. Easier to blame mediocre lettering on cheap supplies. Luxury hides in grindstone grooves. Today's pigment, malachite from the prioress's ring, pulverized with a mortar carved from a saint's femur. Macabre, maybe, effective, indisputable. That bone grit gives the green an earthy glow, like moss on a relic. You'll never admit it's your best work. Humility's sticky that way. An ant trundles across Psalm 68, crushed mid-word, exaltivate. Its shell becomes an inky hill beneath David's sandal. Historical fact interlude. Some scholars claim insects in manuscripts were intentional medieval bug taxidermy. You're just bad at cleaning your desk. Watch the gold leaf ritual breath held, knife edge precision. Dab the gesso, lay the foil, burnish with a wolf's tooth. One tremor and Mary's halo becomes a lopsided hula hoop. 73 attempts this week. 73 hasty snacks for the scriptorium mice. Your stomach growls. Lent sucks. Here's the scandal your tutor skipped. Certain abbesses mixed honey into red ink, thickened it for clinging to nuns' tongues during penitential licking. You tested it. Can confirm it pairs poorly with chastity vows. Sext bells jolt your elbow. Vermilion bleeds across a demon's face. Now he's blushing like a nun caught swiping wine. Salvage plan. Turn the smear into martyr's flames. Add a grinning salamander. Sorted. Fringe theory alert. Some nun artists etched tiny self-portraits into initials using needles. You tried it once, left eye twitching for a week. The prioress called it divine punishment. You called it bad lighting, nails yellowed from walnut ink, back hunched like a question mark. This is the posture of piety. Historians still argue whether scriptorium labor was meditation or mortification. Your vertebrae vote torture. Your soul's quieter. It remembers how crooked letters straighten over years, how impatience thins into something resembling grace. Dusk brings the fourth ink pot, charred willow soot, and egg white. The mix stings your hangnail. 14th century Bengay baby. You daub it on anyway. Pain's just God's eraser, rubbing raw the parts that need remaking. Spot the novice trembling at her desk, quill shaking like a sapling in wind. You pass her your cheat sheet, a U shaped like a horseshoe, ES as fat as Abbey Cat's. She mouths thank you. 9th rule of the scriptorium. Art survives only when stolen, shared, smuggled forward. Final touch. A border of interlocked hands yours, Juliana's, Agnes's hidden in Ezekiel's storm cloud. Centuries from now, conservators will marvel at the symbolism. You know the truth. It's the lineup of who owes who fig cakes after Compline. Matins bells dissolve your focus. A yawn cracks your jaw. Pigment clings to eyelashes. Tomorrow's first blink will smear the world in lapis and sin. The Madonna's unfinished eye stares through you, almond-shaped gap, daring your brush to define divinity. You mix ultramarine from Afghan lapis, each grain costing 3 days' bread. Kings' ransoms wear cheaper blue. Your thumbnail, stained celestial, betrays who really funds this holy work. Notice the halo first, not solid gold, but concentric rings like tree growth. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe Sister Bridget's midnight walks collecting moon-soaked oak bark seeped into her designs. Historians still argue whether halo patterns echo pagan moon cults or just lazy compass work. You nudge the curves wider, A lunar wink. Only the sharp-eyed will catch. Here's your cheat. Virgins get silver leaf halos, martyrs gold. Saints who complained about cold porridge. You sneak in copper, their celestial crown tarnishing first. Petty? Absolutely. Theologians haven't noticed yet. Watch the red, dragon's blood resin smuggled through 3 trade hubs. Its stench clings to your wimple like damnation's perfume. Forbidden fact. The church banned this pigment after that incident with the poisoned bishop's gloves. You uncork it anyway. Judas deserves a properly crimson robe. Flick the bristles, speckle the background with oxgall bile droplets. From afar, they'll look like stars. Up close, St. Theodore's freckles, defacing sanctity, call it. Inclusive canonization, your pinky smears Christ's cheek, instantly transforming baptism into a toddler's juice-stained grin. Quick fix. Add a cherub dunking him in the Jordan. Now it's doctrine. Crisis averted. Undocumented trick. Grind dried adder skin into the gray for Judas's noose. The prior will praise the sinuous texture. You'll know it's just petty revenge for that time he scrapped your St. Lucy draft. Eyes on a plate, indeed. Witness the fringe theory made real. Between the Magdalene's toes, you ink 7 dots, Pleiades constellation. Her sandal's undone strap points northwest. Navigational aid for runaway novices. Pure coincidence. Probably. Gold leaf clings to your lip. You've licked 3 Florentines of it this hour. Flakes shimmer in your spit bucket like unholy glitter. 9th rule of iconography. Everything's communion if you're brave enough. Spot the mischief. John the Baptist's scroll bears faint hatch marks. Rebus experts 2 centuries hence will decode them as Herod's chef overcooks lamb. Immortality's a joke best served cold. The abbess inspects your progress. Her ringed finger taps Salome's platter still bare. Why no head? You shrug. Let the viewer imagine the gore. Her silence costs you tomorrow's honey ration. Worth it. Dusk bleeds crimson across your desk. Final touch. The Lamb of God's pupils, pinpricks of fermented elderberry juice. They'll darken to black within a year. Let future monks argue about Antichrist symbolism. Matins bells toll. You blow on the Magdalene's starry feet, ash from the candle, merging with her constellation. A sneeze tomorrow could birth a whole new heresy. Sleep well, architect of Apocrypha. That lingering sneeze ash becomes rosemary sprigs under your fingernail, crushed greenery, staining the Magnificat's margins. Welcome to the apothecary's gospel, where martyrs bleed saffron and salvation smells like crushed thyme. You're no longer just an illuminator. Now you're a gardener with a quill. Dried chamomile petals stick to your sleeves, each daisy-like bloom pressed where psalms mention peace. Practical theology. Nothing soothes a panicked novice like herbal aromas during 3 a.m. vigils. Historical records confirm nuns traded medicinal plants for parchment as early as 1123. The real miracle, getting paid actual coin instead of more dam leaks. Check the rubricated initials those fat red letters framing sacred text. That crimson isn't just vermilion. Swipe a finger across the M and taste honeyed blackberry juice, boiled with iron nails for bite. Herbalist sister Agnes's recipe doubled as anemia treatment. Monks got envious. They tried substituting beetroot. Look up liturgical pink fails in the margins of history. Spot the gray smudge near St. Friedeswide's ankle, a hasty sketch of vervain leaves. Quirky theory. Rubbing this page on fevered brows allegedly cured ague better than leeches. Skeptics called it heresy. Believers snuck into the scriptorium to lick the parchment. Either way, the abbess installed a tasting fee. Your current project: a Virgin Mary adorned with real rose thorns, gilded and pressed into her halo. Each prickle sourced from bushes named after apostles. Peter's rose always draws first blood. Historians still argue whether these botanicals were devotional aids or medieval mood boards. Crush lentils into the green pigment for Eden's foliage. Practical, it thickens the mix. Petty, it mirrors the bitter taste of Tuesday's soup. Double the penance, half the guilt. Warning: avoid the monk's hood illustration near the health tonic pages. One overeager novice brewed the painted flowers into tea. Let's just say the latrine's new mosaics were not part of the abbess's renovation plans. Tonight's innovation: lavender oil mixed with egg tempera. The result: a salter that doubles as a sleep aid. You're basically inventing aromatherapy 7 centuries early. Take that, modern spas. Downside: folio 32 now attracts very pious bees. Peek at the Book of Hours open by your elbow. Those ornamental ivy vines. Actual poison oak sketches repurposed after a feud with the monastery's landscaper. His rash-inspired psalm, "Deliver me from itching," betch hits different. Find the rosewater reservoir buried under your desk. A stolen sacramental chalice filled with blush-colored liquid. Dipping your brush here stains initials the exact hue of Saint Dymphna's rumored blush. Also masks the reek of pig fat candles. Efficiency hidden in the St. Gallen legend, a pressed mandrake root curling like a fetus between verses. Dangerous, obviously. But when the bishop demands proof of the abbey's childlike piety, you speak in herbarium. Morning light exposes your sins. A snail trail slithers across the Beatitudes, its glistening path perfectly tracing, "Blessed are the meek." Quick dub it an illustration of pilgrimage paths. Add a decorative shell. Who's the mystic now? The real scandal lives in the kitchen garden. See those heart-shaped oxalis leaves tucked into the Song of Songs. They're not symbols of love. They're Sister Basilia's bookmark for the best tart recipe. God's sweetness comes in berry form. Dinner's hawthorn jam smears on Judith's sword, a jelly-esque blood effect that'll confuse scholars for ages. Let them debate whether it represents the viscosity of virtue. You're just avoiding dish duty. Last task before Vespers: outline a peony's petals using vinegar-soaked vervain stems. The acidic lines will etch faintly into parchment, visible only when breathed upon. Future readers will call it a miracle. You call it boredom with standard borders. Lullaby your hands in mint-infused beeswax, the original working woman's hand cream. As the stars prick through the scriptorium's lone window, your herbal gospel exhales, a book that heals, stings, and remembers, sleepwalks through centuries, gardens pressed between prayers, salvation growing in the margins. The wax puddle around your candle has claws now, 5 jagged talons reaching toward unfinished vines. Time bleeds differently at this hour. Each brush stroke stretches seconds into something sticky and raw. You've entered the hour of the wolf. The wolves would have wisely gone to bed. Your wick sputters in a soup of congealed mutton fat, abbey candles being equal parts light source and butcher's revenge. Historical records show convents spent 20% of their budget on wax. The real miracle, explaining lamb-scented smoke during Lenten fasts. Count the hours by prayer increments, matins, lauds, prime. Or, as Sister Juliana insists, by how many times you've stabbed your thumb with the stylus. 30 pricks for glossing proverbs. That's a new personal best. Cold gnaws through your habit's elbow patches. You breathe on numb fingers, watch the ghost of your warmth fog the vellum. The Annunciation scene gains an impromptu cloud. Divine intervention covers shaky linework. Candle shadows turn faces monstrous. That serene Madonna, her eyes just rolled sideways watching you botch her robes. Historians still argue whether late-night illuminations were acts of devotion or sleep-deprived hallucinations. The quill's scratch sinks with the watchman's cough 3 floors below. Everyone pretends not to hear his whiskey-slurred prayers. Your secret, illustrate his red nose into tomorrow's demon illustrations. Revenge is a pigment best served burnt umber. Smell that. Burnt honey rises from the warming brazier, stolen beehive resin melting into adhesive. It sweetens the air. It also explains why the altar wine's been suspiciously watery. Your inkwell reflects a distorted face, a stranger with owl-wide eyes. You've forgotten your own age. Quill pranks say 22. Joints suggest 90. The truth hides in the wrinkles around your reservoir. Notice the candle's twin burning in the window across the cloister. Sister Margaret's still awake, her silhouette hunched like a question mark. You wave the code, 3 flickers for past the ergot, 4 for my saint's feet turned out webbed again. Midnight's illicit luxury, a thimble of honeyed wine warming on the brazier. It's not gluttony if you're testing gilding adhesives. The prior's blessing on that loophole lasted precisely 6 hours. Your candlewick drowns, a final hiss, as the flame gulps tallow. Darkness swallows the scriptorium. No matter. The Annunciation's gold leaf still glows, Mary's halo hovering like a stolen sun. Wait, did the border vines just twitch? Sleep deprivation gifts visions, tendrils curling toward wine stains, ivy reclaiming psalms about deserts. You trace a drowsy finger over Genesis. The serpent winks. Dawn's first gray bleeds through, not light, exactly. More the idea of light. It exposes your crimes. A fly embedded in the Trinities. Oh, 3 eyelashes sealing a martyr's wound. The relics no one planned. The bells startle you into splattering Lazarus's shroud with walnut ink. Perfect. Now he's resurrecting through a thunderstorm. Call it artistic license. Call it never mentioning this to the abbess. Your last candle costs more than your shoes, beeswax smuggled inside hollowed hymnals. Worth it to see colors wake up in its glow. Prussian blue purrs. Ochre hums. Vermilion screams. Find the ledger hidden under your desk. A timeline of deadlines crossed out and rewritten. Feast days circled in yellow pigment. Historians will call this devotional scheduling. You call it surviving the prior's tantrums. The cold has fused your spine into the stool's curve. Standing feels like tearing parchment. You shuffle toward lauds, legs creaking like the abbey's ancient weather vane. At least the frost killed the manuscript-eating beetles. Morning light, now harsh and honest, reveals your masterpiece's flaws. Mary's nose tilts left. The angel's wings resemble overboiled cabbage. But the colors, oh, the colors. They shimmer like something alive, breathing through the vellum's pores. You leave a crescent moon doodle in the margin, tonight's sole, unbotched shape. Let future scholars decode its meaning. Truth. It's just where you rested your head for 7 stolen minutes. The bells toll for prime. Your candle stump weeps wax over Exodus, a tiny Nile of frozen tears. Somewhere, a rooster mocks your all-nighter. Somewhere, Sister Agatha's snoring shakes loose a decade of dust from the rafters. The merciful irony. The beautiful verses about rest are always penned in exhaustion. You retrace the come unto me illuminations, your fingerprints visible in the ultramarine. God's invitation, smudged by mortal hands, your shadow stretches toward the door, a lengthening stain across 7 hours' work. The day shift nuns will cluck over the ink blots. Let them. Tonight, you'll baptize more parchment in stolen moonlight and mutton fat. Invention thrives where clocks dare not tick. Your thumbnail traces the crescent moon doodle, its edges fuzzy from your drowsy head weight. Nearby, a smudged S bleeds into the psalm's border. Not your initial, unless guilt writes in tongues. 3 shelves down, Sister Euphemia's psalter lies open, its margins thick with spidery complaints. Dearest future Eystrin victim, if my brown ink fades, blame Brother Cedric's improved oak gall recipe. Historians recently carbon dated such notes to pre-plague scriptoria, proof that snark survives pestilence. You dip your quill in welled yellow, innocent enough, then flick a droplet onto the Archbishop's smug face. Tomorrow's problem, tonight's tiny rebellion. Hidden under a pasted hymn sheet, your 3rd shift diary grows. Vespers, year of our discontent. Traded 2 Hail Marys for a thimble of Sister Clara's blackberry ink. Also, if found, this is all a metaphor. Candle wax pools around your initial, an A shaped like a keyhole. For who? Centuries later, a conservator will squint at this, vacuuming crumbs from your secrets. They'll debate whether it's monkish shorthand or just bad penmanship. Breath steams the vellum, your nose imprint, warping a martyr's flaming halo. Perfect. The legend grows. Saint Dymphna spontaneously wept here, circa 1392. Never mind the sneeze that birthed the miracle. Under Compline hymns, you stash a minuscule sketch, the abbess, as a hedgehog. It nests between Ecclesiastes and a wine stain shaped like gall. Historians still argue whether medieval doodles were devotional aids or the original bathroom graffiti, that faint smudge on Psalm 91. Not a spiritual allegory, just Sister Agnes's rhubarb pie theft ledger. Ointment for Brother Martin's, gout equals 1 tart. Vespers, migraine, equals 2 tarts plus plum compote, the math of survival. Over by the cold brazier, Sister Margaret's signature flickers under a scraped page. Not her name, a single coiled lock of hair. When prioresses demanded humility, vanity went subterranean. 1 strand could outlast 1,000 vows. Your stolen honey wine evaporates, leaving a sticky Rorschach blob. Squint, it's the Holy Spirit. Squint harder, a disgruntled squirrel. This'll confuse the 22nd century doctoral candidates. Let them earn their stipends. Footsteps echo. You smear the evidence with your sleeve. The visitors just shadows, unless Prior Anselm's learned to glide. Either way, your margin manifesto now reads cherubs instead of cheating at dice with the deacon. Divine editing. Dawn licks the eastern window, revealing generations of midnight legacies. Here, a 200-year-old complaint about mildewed wimples. There, a 14th century shopping list. Verdigris, egg whites, something to kill scabies, the true communion of saints. You tuck a pressed snowdrop into John's Revelations, petals crisp as parchment. Future researchers will call it symbolic purity. You call it forgetting your bookmark again. Both truths hold. The ink recipe in your sleeve crackles. Its stolen formula, a mix of science and heresy. Grind lapis with alder bark. Ignore Brother Godric's divine ratios. Centuries later, chemists will marvel at the pH balance, never spotting the nun's humorous adjustments. Your quill hovers over a virginally clean margin. The temptation to etch I exist in letters smaller than spider legs. The fear that someday someone will see it and say nothing back. Air shifts, the scriptorium door whispers on its hinges. You palm the incriminating quill, but it's just the wind. Or Margaret's ghost, 5 centuries dead, still seeking collaborators for her unfinished elephant illustration. Morning light exposes your crimes, the archbishop's yellow acne, the hedgehog abbess, the salter's pie-fueled math. No matter. Tonight's shift will bring fresh parchment and fresh lies to smear across eternity. Your wrist remembers the tremor that killed Saint Agnes's halo Last winter, 3 months, labor drowned in one heartbeat. You've ground lapis into powder until your thumbnail turned celestial blue. Now the priors demanding richer ultramarine, the pigment merchants laugh all the way to paradise. 3 drops of oxgall ink bloom across Luke's parables, an instant Rorschach gospel. Salvage it as martyr's blood or start anew. You're on Vellum ration 3 this month, scrubbing mistakes. With pumice leaves your palms, raw as penance. Historians will call these pages lovingly preserved, not knowing the skin cells embedded where you cursed through gritted teeth. That headache pulsing behind your left eye. Standard scriptorium fare, like Brother Aldo's endless nasal psalms. You trade a polished agate burnisher for Sister Juliana's opium-laced balm, its scent clinging to Revelation's margins. 14th century OSHA violations hit different. Midnight's deepest hour, your quill nib splits mid-serif. The replacement costs 2 apple tarts and a lie about menstrual pains. Gilded letters blur into golden ants marching toward Judgment Day. You're pretty sure Augustine never hallucinated saints with extra limbs, but here we are. The whispering starts when candle wax drips onto the Cairo monogram. 18 layers of gold leaf undone. Fix it, hisses the abbess's ghost, or maybe that's just your empty stomach. Some days, the voices of tradition sound suspiciously like low blood sugar. You've invented 7 new heresies trying to stabilize verdigris green. Last week's batch 8 through parchment and your best linen underdress. Now the virgin's robe resembles Swiss cheese, a dietary restriction, metaphor nobody ordered. Chronic ice strain twists the stag psalm into dancing shadows. Blink hard, the letters swim like minnows, evading inquisitional nets. Medical scrolls recommend owl blood eye drops, but brother infirmarians fresh out of avian sacrifice volunteers. Your spine hasn't uncurled since Epiphany, every vertebra a rosary bead of suffering. Remember Sister Birth's hunched silhouette. They buried her with an unsharpened quill, the ultimate nun joke. Historians still argue whether scriptorium stoop was a deliberate ascetic practice or just really bad ergonomics, that faint brown smear across the Beatitudes. Not divine inspiration. Sister Clothilda fainted into her own inkpot circa 1273, her final act, a blood sugar crash, immortalized as innovative sepia toning. The chronicler's art appreciates in irony. You've stashed emergency vellum under the lectern, contraband paid for with forged choir attendance records. 1 botched minim could ruin Easter. 2, if Prior Anselm audits the liturgy budget again. The thrill of medieval white-collar crime. It's all in the ledger's tiny numbers. Dawn unveils your masterpiece, a Pentecost scene where the Holy Spirit's flames look suspiciously like boiling turnips. Parallelism, you'll argue. Hungry minds see hungry shapes. At least the speaking in tongues bit checks out. They don't tell novices about the arthritic claws, hands frozen mid-stroke long after Compline bells. You soak them in moth-piss mordant, because if it sets crimson dyes, why not knuckles? Alchemies full of hopeful experiments. Your right eye's permanent squint merges psalter verses into prophetic nonsense. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Future linguists will coin theories about secret Nordic influences. Reality, a half-blind nun misreading her own letters. The mirror-polished agate reveals everything. The split quill tip, your hagiography's shaky lines, mortality's first gray hairs. You trade it for a dented tin plate, better the blur of mercy than truth's sharp edge. Breath held you dot the last, I in Illuminator. The Latin feels heavier tonight. One manuscript complete, 3 finger joints stiffened, 7 candles sacrificed, countless Hail Marys bartered for decent linseed oil. Perfection's ledger always balances blood with beauty. Sister Margaret's ghost approves her own psalter, still unbound after 6 centuries. She knocks an ink jar sideways, a welcome home prank. The spill forms a perfect comma, as if to say pause here, but never stop. The comma-shaped ink spill winks at you, Sister Margaret's unfinished punchline. Your thumb smears it into oblivion, leaving a stain that'll have future chemists debating medieval coffee habits. Crimson's the problem tonight. The prior confiscated your cochineal beetles. Cardinals hue for cardinals' use. Never mind that vermilion's made from toxic mercury mines, guarded by lepers. Piety has its own OSHA loopholes. You grind pomegranate rinds instead. A sanctioned red for virgins' modest cheeks. The resulting sludge resembles a butcher's floor after Lent, weak pink, pretending at purity. Historians will later gush over this restrained palate, not knowing you spat 3 prayers into the mortar for richer pigment. The real treasure hides between the choir stalls. Sister Genova's midnight brew of crushed insects and menstrual blood. Don't ask when she collects ingredients. Some convent secrets travel best unspoken. Your quill hovers over a martyred saint's wounds, the band crimson pooled in a ram's horn under your desk. Risk eternal damnation for aesthetic impact. The prior's footsteps echo outside. You paint the blood brown instead. Gilder's remorse hits at matins, watching your cowed colors shrink from their own holiness. That muted virgin's cloak won't inspire anyone, not even a mildly devout hedgehog. Rebellion comes via marginalia, a comedy of errors penned between solemn chapters. You sketch a cardinal's hat on Balaam's donkey, vermilion stolen drop by drop during confession lines. The ink glows obscenely bright, divine endorsement, or poor impulse control. Midnight brings Sister Ursula's trade, her prized lapis lazuli for your forged choir sickness note. Blues still legal if you ignore the accidental arsenic blooms in the seal dazzler. Historians still argue whether color bans stemmed from piety or Rome's monopoly on rare pigments. Fun fact, the Vatican's ledger from 1327 lists incarnadine procurement under sole maintenance expenses. Draw your own conclusions. Your masterpiece emerges muted, saints swaddled in budgetary beige. Only the devil in the borders grins scarlet, his tail dipped in Genova's contraband. Let them peel back centuries, searching for heresy, washing brushes in the rain barrel. You spot Prior Anselm's reflection, smirking over your shoulder. They say he once scrapped an entire psalter because the gold leaf tempted avarice. His ring flashes with stolen malachite, green enough to color 6 Marian forests. The censored visions linger, a phantom palette, haunting your sleep. In dreams, you paint God's robe ultraviolet, a hue no medieval eyes ever seen. It looks suspiciously like Sister Mathilda's accidental indigo and urine mixture from Advent. Dawn finds you etching protest into wax tablets. Patterns only candle smoke will reveal. The censors can scrape parchment, but they'll never catch what burns in the air between breath and prayer. Mercury red anger simmers through vespers, staining your tongue during communion wine. Tomorrow, you'll bargain with Visigoth traders for dragon's blood resin. Let them call it heresy, you'll call it creative sourcing. For now, the forbidden colors sleep under floorboards, coiled like snakes, waiting for Eden's second act. Your thumb finds dried vermilion in cuticle cracks, each fleck a tiny, persistent fire. The compass pricks your thumb, same wound as yesterday, but now geometry demands blood tribute. Your ruler groans against vellum scarred with pinpricks. Every circle starts as violence. Medieval grid systems weren't about art. They were land surveys for heaven. You sketch a 9-square net from Plato's Timaeus. Ratio of soul stuff, some monk mangled in translation. Historians still argue whether these grids tamed chaos or proved God bad at math. Sister Gertrude claimed circles stopped demons, their endless curves offering no purchase for claws. Your quiver holds compasses carved from cat bones, ribs thin enough for filigree. Don't ask which cat. A misaligned hexagon mocks you, each angle accusingly Euclidean. You adjust with wine-stained protractors. Some call it prayer, others compulsive trigonometry. The prior banned Ovid, but never geometry. Arithmetic can't lead hearts astray, or can it? 14 hours into depicting Ezekiel's wheel, your eyes betray you. Corner triangles bulge like drunkards. Symmetry's a fickle saint. She only answers those who squint. Here's a secret. Every Gothic rose window started as a nun's botched mandala. Your scrapped sketches line the privy. God's perfect order makes excellent bum fodder. Gold leaf clings to compass points, the only wealth that doesn't corrupt. Or so they say. Your gessos mixed with honey, stickier sins, tempt tongues during fasting hours. You resist. Mostly, midnight unveils the truth, geometries, just God's doodles. You sneak a dodecahedron into John's revelation. 12 sides for 12 gates of New Jerusalem. A Vatican librarian will later hyperventilate into his mitre over it. Islamic quasi-crystalline patterns slithered into your borders. Traders' illuminated Quran left open at the dye vats. Coincidence? Heresy. Your priors, too busy confiscating ink-addled starlings to notice, ever measure a salter's margin. Exactly 3 barleycorns wide, same as the space between a nun's vows and her screaming mind. You fight compass drift with pilgrim nails stolen from a reliquary. St. Cuthbert's pinky makes an excellent center pin. Fabricators of faith always repurpose tools. The problem with heavenly spheres, their perfection leaves no room for error. You tattoo 3 crooked stars on your thigh, a votive offering to human wobble. Dawn reveals your triumph. Ezekiel's wheel rendered via 15 interlocking heptagons. Mathematically impossible. Theologically cataclysmic. You label it God's unknowable design. In minuscule Greek, the scribal equivalent of a shrug. Gertrude's ghost murmurs approval, her bone compass tracing your cheek. Geometry, like devotion, lives in the calibration between obsession and surrender. Burn the grid-smeared scraps. Bury the cat-bone tools. Let archaeologists debate your advanced grasp of fractals. You're just trying to draw angels without going cross-eyed. Your final diagram throbs, a Fibonacci spiral, swallowing 7 martyrs. It'll be hailed as mystical genius. Truth. You copied the pattern from a snail shell sister Agnes, fried in garlic oil last Tuesday. The prior inspects your work, his beard trembling at the nested icosahedrons. Divine proportions, he concedes, while confiscating your protractor. Some revelations are too perfect to risk repeating. You carve a new compass from a stolen chicken femur. The quest for symmetry outlives every tool. Tonight's challenge, squaring the circle. Tomorrow's problem, explaining why you need 7 live beetles. Librarians will later weep over your precision. Unaware the sacred geometric canon began as a bet with a girl who could fold origami swallows. Vespers bells ring, each chime a radius extending toward heaven. You count intersections between sound and silence, then sketch them as constellations. They'll chain your folios in Vatican vaults, your spirals pacing like caged things. But for this suspended breath, the compass needle trembles equidistant between chaos and grace. Smoke sears your throat before your eyes adjust, angry orange light eating the scriptorium door. Boots thunder upstairs. King Henry's men prefer smashing reliquaries to reading. You grab a half-finished psalter, its illuminations still wet enough to smear sainthood across your sleeves. They came for the convent's silver, never expecting parchment defenders. Sister Margaret hurls inkhorns at invaders. Goose quills become martyrdom's cheapest arrows. Your habit snags on a desk carved with 5 centuries of initials. And for once, you're grateful for shoddy mending. Here's a truth no chronicle mentions. Medieval manuscript ink smolders when burned. Each tossed folio glows blue before catching brief azure ghosts of Eve's apple, Jonah's whale. The soldiers retreat from fluttering fire. They'll take melted candlesticks over cursed papier. You trip over Abbess Hildegard's secret, 16 Bibles packed in an ale cask. The Brewers Guild trademark still stains Matthew's Beatitudes, eternal blessings hovering over a hop-sand barley crest. Historians still argue whether smuggled scriptures birthed England's first pub Bibles. But that's a sermon for another pyre. Margaret shoves you into the herb garden, your sandals crushing lavender and panic. She peels up a flagstone with chipped fingernails. Quick, the Colchester Compromise. You stare. She means the moldering copy of Julian of Norwich's visions, buried here after the 23 Chinese letter, more fungus than parchment now. Men shout through smoke. Their torches hit the lavender. Flames race along oil-infused hedges. Sister Agnes' arthritis remedy becomes an inferno. Margaret coughs a laugh. Always said her rosemary tincture was flammable. You clutch the manuscript against your ribs, feel its warped boards dig into bone. Gold leaf reflects firelight for one blasphemous moment, the devil's own illumination. Footsteps close in, you do the unthinkable. Wrap the book in your habit. Ditch the wimple. Suddenly, you're just another peasant clutching laundry, the word disguised as a sack of turnips. A soldier eyes you, snatches the cloth. Pages spill into mud, but he's too busy pocketing your copper cloak pin to notice theology at his feet. Dawn finds you knee-deep in the Wylye River, washing soot from the Colchester text. Water bleeds indigo and ochre downstream, a liquid stained glass window. 4 swans paddle through the wreckage, medieval ISBN validators, judging your preservation skills. Margaret's voice cuts through the fog. They missed the Beowulf. You turn. She's draped in the convent's sole, surviving tapestry, Judith mid-beheading Holofernes. The manuscript dangles from her grip, wrapped in greasy kitchen parchment, labeled pig lard resupply. Buried it in the midden, she rasps. Even Lutherans won't dig through 6 months of nun crap. The joke dies as you unroll it. The epic's monster fights intercut with nunnery's grocery lists. Grendel shares a margin with Sister Maud's rant about thieving novices. They never found the best part, the Gutenberg Bible, hidden in plain sight. Prior Anselm had it rebound as papist nonsense and heretical cookery, complete with biscuit grease stains. 400 years later, auctioneers will weep at the marginalia. Add more saffron beside Solomon's temple dimensions. You exhale as the convent collapses, its library becoming one last bitter censer. Fire lifts, pages skyward, brief wings of vellum circling the abbey tower. Margaret pockets a charred angel's face, its once gold halo, now a ashen coin. Ever notice, she whispers, how smoke makes Latin smell like desperation? You don't answer. Your eyes track a half-burned folio, snagging in an oak, Psalm 23, rendered into Rorschach blots. The Lord as shadow, the valley of death a smear of lampblack. Voices approach. You plunge into the river, illuminated letters staining the current yellow. Margaret follows, still cloaked in headless Holofernes. The icy water shocks your lungs into prayer, and Our Father punctuated by teeth chatters. When you surface, the soldiers are gone. So's the pig-lard Beowulf. All that remains your soot-stained hands. 10 generations later, a child will trace your thumbprint on Psalm 119. Mistake it for a tiny charcoal rose. They'll write papers about intentional abstract motifs in Reformation-era manuscripts. You'd prefer they noticed the smudge is, quite literally, the shit you dragged through a river to save Exodus. The current tugs at your knees, cold, persistent, alive. Somewhere downstream, a fish nibbles gilded capitals from a sinking antiphonary. You imagine it, holy words swimming in pike bellies, psalmody sung through gills. Margaret wrings out her habit, a flood of inky Lenten purple. Next time, she gasps, let's become Anabaptist tapestry makers. You're too busy counting surviving pages to laugh. 6, maybe 7, the rest. But wait, your shift clings with suspicious stiffness. You peel back wool, 16 illuminated capitals cling to the fabric. Sacrificed Leviticus to save the ABCs of devotion. The milk and honey gesso held fast, divine rubber cement. They'll rebuild the convent, of course. New walls, new vows, new Latin mumbled through gritted teeth. But tonight, you and Margaret huddle in a charcoal maker's hut, blowing on embers to dry Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, you croak, watching steam rise from parchment pores. There was damage control. A moth lands on the partially restored bee of Bereshit, its wings powdered with ash from your eyebrows. Neither of you move. It's the closest thing to a benediction you'll get tonight. Dawn finds you scraping pigment from salvaged pages, holy reds and blues, reborn as farmhouse wall paint. The Virgin's azure mantle becomes a kitchen's hearth border, her serene smile overseeing bread loaves. You keep a sliver of gold leaf in your cheek, emergency communion wafer. It tastes like Gilder's guilt and stolen salvation. Margaret traces a soot line on your forehead, an accidental Ash Wednesday. Next life, she vows, I'm being a Jewish scribe in Cordoba. You add learn Hebrew to your mental list, right below, forgive Henry VIII. The river remains your accomplice. By noon, you floated 3 condemned salters downriver, each tied to prayer ropes that'll snag on a fisherman's net. Let the Thames decide what's canon now. They'll never find all the fragments. Beetles in Oxfordshire will digest Leviticus. A Parisian bonfire will misinterpret St. Augustine as kindling. But tomorrow, when a baker's daughter finds Romans 8:28 stuck to her shoe, well, let's just say resurrection comes in unexpected packaging. You pocket a curved scrap, all that's left of Eden's tree. The serpent's smirk remains intact. Some truths refuse to burn. You're picking charred vellum from your nails when it glints, a single M hidden in a psalm's flourish. Not the holy M of Mary, but Margaret's defiant swipe of vermilion. she catches you staring. Initials are cheaper than tombstones, she shrugs. 3 floors above, where the scriptorium's roof now lets in rain, a dozen names once danced in margins. A cross shaped like a sword here, a fish disguised as a comma there. History prefers its nuns anonymous, but ink stains harder than vows. Fun fact researchers found a 9th century herbal with Edberga hoc fecit crammed between dandelion roots. Edberga made this, Sister Act 1, Vatican Library 0. Your thumbnail traces a faded mark, Sister Cecilia's solution to monastic modesty. Every Pentecost scene she painted hid a tiny C in the dove's tail feathers. 4 centuries later, art restorers will debate whether it's divine symbolism or, well, vandalism. Historians still argue whether these glyphs were pious humility or the scribe version of tagging a cathedral wall. Margaret peels apart singed folios, each layer whispering secrets. Here a J in Jonah's whale belly. There, a bee woven into Babylon's tower bricks. Our Lady of the scribble margins, she mutters. Dust motes swirl where her laughter should be. You almost miss it, a prayer for the dead, each capital letter spacing a name. ANNE, 4 strokes disguised as liturgy. Clever girl making requiems pull double duty as birth certificates. Damp ruins your plans to preserve them. St. Jerome's face bleeds across your lap, his stern gaze reduced to a Rorschach puddle. The real surprise. 3 pinpricks along the edge, a nun's teeth, marks from stretching parchment. Orthodontists could have dated the manuscript by her crooked incisor. Found our retirement fund, Margaret coughs. She's unearthed a charter from 1482, Lady Margaret Beaufort's seal half melted. Your thumb brushes wax still indented with a nun's fingerprint, all that power and piety outlived by a kitchen worker's sweaty grip. They tried to erase us, you think, but skin cells linger. Remember Sister Agatha's legendary "I was here" gambit. She inked her initials into a dentition diagram, claiming authorship via Saint's molar. Modern scholars call it anatomical innovation. You call it medieval bathroom graffiti. The wind shifts, carrying ash that was once Martin Luther's pamphlet rebuttal. It sticks to your cheek like a phantom's teardrop. Margaret licks her thumb, scrubs your face roughly. Saved from the autodafé, now you cosplay chimney sweep. You unroll a salvaged cartulary. The property records are tedious until you spot them. Between lines listing barley yields and sheep counts, tiny portraits of nuns wielding quills like swords. The artist signed with a single hair pressed into vellum, still blonde after 600 years. A sneeze threatens to obliterate a tax collector's Iarkthath entry. You fight it, eyes watering as Margaret intones. In Nomen Patris, the Amen comes as a damp explosion. 14 different inks blur into theological soup. They'll never know your name, not the way you want. But here's a truth. Every repaired tear in this manuscript wears your DNA. future scholars may sequence parchment collagen. Find your skin flakes in the binding of Isaac. Margaret slumps against a scorched cupboard. Write my epitaph on a cheese rind, she wheezes. Bury me in the midden with the Beowulf. You nod. Let your legacy be the crumbs stuck between folios. Dawn exposes what tombstones won't. There, in smeared ochre, your thumb-drawn owl in a bishop's margin. An old joke, the bird symbolizes wisdom, but you just liked drawing feather swirls. Footsteps approach. Protestant, reformer, manuscript dealer. Doesn't matter. You feed the owl-scrawled page to fading flames. Its ashes rise, a final, desperate semaphore. They'll call your work anonymous and be half right, but tonight, sandwiched between Ecclesiastes and a recipe for turnip pie, a single smudged thumbprint laughs at oblivion. The scent of melted beeswax follows you into the scriptorium, Gregorian chants, threading through your pulse like another kind of bloodstream. Dip the brush, hum the Gloria, watch pigment swirl to the sway of psalms. Your convent's secret, they trained choir sisters to sustain low C, a vibration that steadies trembling hands during gilding. You mix azurite powder with cherry gum, each grind synced to the abbess's tempo, faster for morning hymns, slower for Complin's melancholy drones. Historians will someday note how 12th century illuminations match liturgical modes, lents sparse harmonies, mirroring pared-down borders. But you just know that painting Lazarus's shroud goes smoother when Sister Agnes belts penitential antiphons. A broken reed pen becomes your drumstick, tapping out Veni Creator Spiritus on an ink-stained stool. The novice across the room scowls. Her Annunciation scene suffers, Mary's cheek smudged by an off-rhythm jolt. Music sanctifies labor, Mother Ursula intones, while discreetly kicking your foot into silent submission. The real magic happens at midnight, when chant shifts to forbidden harmonies, parallel fifths rumbling like storm clouds, colors deepen. Your brush exaggerates serpentine vines, twists apostles' robes into rhythmic folds. Once, during an illicit Ave Maris Stella round, your miniatures developed actual wave patterns, wax pooled like molten amber under the heat of too many voices. Quirky detail. Modern musicologists found a 1324 manuscript where the Virgin's halo matches the exact frequency of a perfect fifth. Coincidence or chromatic theology? You sketch fleur-de-lis to the abbess's vibrato, each petal curling where her voice wavers. A drop of vermilion escapes, blooming into a demon's cheek. Sister Clara snorts. Judas got sunburned, she whispers. Your correction, a strategically placed hymn book, doubles as a drum to muffle her giggles. They'll never record how Sister Beatrice's alto cracks transformed dragon scales into feathery fronds, or why the Sanctus always makes you gild Judas's rope instead of Peter's keys. Musicology texts prefer tidy theories, not the truth of wine-stained lips, mouthing profane ditties between Latin. You're outlining Ezekiel's wheel when the choir hits a dissonant ninth. The compass slips, spiraling into a perfect caricature of Father Reynard's double chin. Sister Magdalena chokes on her own spit, trying not to laugh. Cover it with a cloak. Add a hastily drawn hymn scroll. Problem sanctified. Historians still argue whether Cistercian choirs used musical notation as template lines for illuminations. You settle the debate nightly, tracing staffs directly onto vellum before painting prophets between the ledger lines. A sneeze during the Alleluia sends gold leaf fluttering onto your scalp. You pretend it's divine anointment, flexing suddenly glamorous eyebrows at Agnes until she hurls a walnut shell at your chant book. Hildegard's compositions hit different when your cramps are acting up. Those jagged melismas, perfect for rendering martyrs' writhing limbs. You discover this while sketching St. Agatha breasts on a plate never looked so rhythmically compelling. The antiphonals at full roar when you make your move. A drop of wine, stolen communion, leftovers, thickens the oxgall binder. Now Salome's dance shimmers. Her 7 veils, each ripples to a different mode. Dorian for modesty, Phrygian for lust, Mixolydian for the head on the platter. Mother Ursula eyes your suddenly dynamic figures. The Lord works in mysterious meters, you murmur, snapping a plectrum from a dried codfish spine. By matins, your eyes swim with crochets and quaver stems. You've accidentally notated Psalm 54 in the margins, a staff of curled ivy. Notes as pomegranate seeds. Future scholars will mislabel it, an early example of organum. The truth, sleep deprivation plus fermented blackberry ink. You glower as Sister Imaz off-key. Agnus Dei warps your lamb's proportions. 4 centuries from now, some PhD candidate will write about intentional anti-papist satire in your llama-shaped Lamb of God. Let them. You've got an apocalyptic dragon to paint, its scales synced perfectly to the direst dyes. Iri, this side of the Rhine. The bell tolls, a cacophony of copper that crumples your carefully planned border. No matter. Tomorrow's chant will have you redraw Jonah's whale with a rhythm section. Your brush hovers, dips, dances, as vespers shake the last pigment droplets onto a dog-eared Marian prayer. Let the record show. When celestial harmonies finally carried your soul heavenward, your corpse still tapped out triple meters on the cloister tiles. The noblewoman's purse clinks onto the scriptorium desk, a dissonant rhythm against your chant-paste brushstrokes. Her agent leans close, stale wine and cloves, pointing to where Lady Adela's face must appear halo-adjacent. Third wise man's left ear, he insists. You swap vermilion for lead white, painting her pout between a camel's hindquarters. Historians love noting how medieval convents bankrolled projects through wealthy benefactors. They're less keen on the taste of gilded flattery. Her latest demand arrives via parchment scrap, spit-sealed with wax. Demand equals gentry. Works cannot be used. An age-old game, noble coin buying heavenly clout. You smirk, tucking her smug face into the Leviathan's jaws on Psalm 74. Let theologians parse that symbolism. Accidental inclusions become your specialty. Lady Adela's nose juts from Daniel's lion den. Her distinctive mole dots the eye in immaculate. Every commission drinks her vanity marrow deep, and twice as sticky. Quill scrapes louder when etching her family crest. 3 sturgeon fish vomiting coins into St. Francis's sermon notes. The real kicker, her lapdog. That yapping beast must materialize in every Last Supper scene, perched where Judas's bread-dipping hand should be. You render it mid-piss against a disciple's sandal. Sister Theodora wheezes into her hymn book, the closest your sisters come to rebellion. Rumors swirl. A rival convent got caught slipping a patron's mistress into Eden. Bishops' envoys now inspect every naked Adam and Eve. Your latest Eve sports Lady Adela's signature widow's peak. Let them squirm. Gift horses have rotten teeth. Her silver buys the good vellum, but funds vanish when you request lapis lazuli. For piety's sake, the abbess mutters, approving inferior azurite that fades to dishwater blue. Colors dim where coin pinches. Martyrdom scenes now look vaguely jaundiced. One advantage, her obsession with contemporary fashion. You pioneer a 3-shade technique for painting those hideous hennin headdresses. Future art restorers will debate whether the burgundy smears on your St. Catherine represent stylized blood, or a very specific criticism of 14th century millinery. The ultimate humiliation comes during Epiphany illuminations. Lady Adela insists on gold leaf camels, but you must make their humps less pronounced. Something about her husband's figure. The scriptorium spends 3 days painting dromedaries that look like hunchbacked donkeys. They're theologically abstract, you explain to the puce-faced agent. Quirky bit researchers found a 1392 Book of Hours where donor portraits outnumber saints. One page shows the patron's entire family riding Christ's donkey into Jerusalem. Subtlety died screaming that day. You're shading Adela's 6th chin when inspiration strikes. Flip the script, paint her as the camel. Sister Birth nearly topples her ink pot laughing. The beast's eyes capture that signature glassy avarice, right down to the lashes copied from her last visit. Even the abbess hides a smirk beneath her wimple. Patron saints of patience get overworked. You channel frustrations into marginalia, a monkey in Adela's headdress, counting coins, a griffon gnawing her family tree. Secret humor stains every commission. Historians still argue whether donor portraits represented devotion or medieval tax write-offs. You've got ledgers proving both. Her final insult, demanding all signatures be replaced with her house motto, through generosity, grace now defaces your finest annunciation. That night, you etch your initials into the Virgin's throne, a tiny M hidden in the woodgrain. 4 centuries later, some sharp-eyed grad student will spot it and cry in a library, The bell tolls Compline. You gild Adela's last demanded halo, slightly lopsided, a shadow smudging its edge. Let future liturgy scholars call it a metaphor for spiritual imperfection. Truth is, your hand cramped from etching 23 gemstones into her hems. As the agent departs with his ego-bound manuscript, Sister Agnes mutters the 78th Psalm, the one about foolish men trusting in riches. His horse chooses that moment to defile the cloister roses. The abbess pronounces it a sign. You just call it good timing. Sleep beckons, but not before sketching tomorrow's idea, a bestiary, where every mythical beast sports Adela's smirk. The manticore's face is already perfect. 10 more commissions, and you'll have enough leverage to buy real lapis, maybe even enough to gild her out of your nightmares. Your knuckles crackle like parchment as frost paints saints' halos brittle. Winter grips the scriptorium. Every exhale fogs vellum. Every dip of the brush risks ice chips in the inkpot. You're painting Annunciation, lilies with hands so stiff. Mary's face keeps acquiring St. Lawrence's grill-marked grimace. The abbess bands, braziers near manuscripts, precious pages curl, smoke stains disaster. Mainstream histories love praising medieval scribes' dedication. Less said about the peapot they pass around. Urine thaws ink faster without diluting pigment. A trade-off between dignity and usable blacks. Sister Juliana nicknames it the golden inkwell. You don't ask details. Candle stubs huddle like nervous lambs, their light barely grazing your workspace. Gold leaf flakes cling to your wimple. Cold makes the gesso glue slow as grudges. That bestiary project, your sketch of Adela the Manticore, now sports frostbitten ears, fittingly porcine, fingers rebel. A twitch smears Balthazar's nose across 3 margin inches. Salvage mode, turn it into a leafless tree. Your masterpiece of accidents grows, a whole forest of oopses lush enough to hide 100 ashamed donors. Quirky survival tactic dug up by some modern PhD, nuns storing pigment jars in their sleeves. Body heat kept vermilion from clumping, crimson half-moons staining wool cuffs, your right arms permanently terracotta below the elbow. A divine hand joke that stopped being funny in Advent. Midnight feels heavier in winter. Vespers blend with matins under starless skies. You're outlining a nativity scene when the inkpot shatters. Frozen glass meeting stone floor, azurite pools like a tiny doomed ocean sister. Agnes starts chanting the psalm about deep calling to deep. Lost week to chilblains, hands wrapped in lambskin. Painting via broom handle strapped to your wrist. Results: Saint Michael looks concussed. His dragon resembles a drunken newt. The abbess declares it a bold, stylistic choice. Her smirk warms the room half a degree. Historians still debate whether winter illuminations look drabber because of faded pigments, or because nuns painted their seasonal depression into every scene. Tonight's flight into Egypt palette sludge brown, death gray, surrender beige. You invent a game with Sister Hedwig, who can spot the most hidden frost motifs. She finds your snowdrift-shaped M in the Virgin's cloak. You spot her iceberg camel chewing on a star. The game ends when someone melts down, usually during the hour of lauds. Patrons don't visit in winter. No Lady Adela demanding golden udders on the Bethlehem sheep. Blessing and curse. Silence amplifies every cough, every sniffle, every. For the love of St. Luke, stop humming. Quill cuts heel slower in the cold. Your thumb wears a scab like a carnelian jewel. You grind the real thing into pigment, sneaking specks into Herod's robe. A bloodier tyranny, hidden in plain sight. Eve's forbidden fruit gets repainted 17 times. Apples rotting. Pears bruising, dates looking suspiciously like mouse droppings. Can't blame Adam for taking a bite when Eden's grocery options suck. Breakthrough comes during the coldest snap. Mix honey into ink for smoother winter flow. Beeswax candles burn sweeter. The scriptorium smells like a bankrupt bakery. Your psalter suddenly popular with resident mice. Final insult. Your breath freezes the vellum while painting Gabriel's trumpet. Thawing leaves a warped patch mid-verse. Now glory to God looks like glory to cod. The bishop's Lenten menu gets suspiciously fish-focused. But here's the miracle, January's light. Weak winter sun hits the gold leaf just so, turning each page into a beacon. Your numb hands craft a paradise that glows, a defiance of the season written in gilded shorthand. By Candlemas, the chill breaks, and you've somehow birthed spring in the margins. You kneel before a mortar stained with centuries of rainbows, crushed malachite grit under your pestle. The ink-mixing sisters legend clings to this room. 3 ghosts in a haze of vinegar and burned eggshells. Mainstream art histories will tell you medieval green came from copper. But Sister Raidgun's ledger mentions 6 moons buried in a dung heap. Modern chemists nod. Acidic soil creates verdigris, while you picture nuns sneaking plates into the privy. A shattered vial hides under the floorboards, glass still slick with something blacker than night. They called it star ink. Soot, F-R-O-M, Chinese letter, Japanese letter, candles, burned during lunar eclipses. You try replicating it. Your theft of sacristy tallow leaves votive stubby. The resulting pigment, closer to dishwater gray. Missing ingredient may be the whispered incantation. Historians still argue whether the sisters were chemists or chaos mages. Their last known red used crushed cochineal beetles. Or was it brick dust and menstrual blood? The marginal notes ambiguous. A sketch of a ladybug, a drop, a crescent moon. You test both. One gives rich crimson, the other a pink, only fit for clown martyrs. Discover their forgotten gold recipe: honey, saffron, and urine aged in a lead jar. It reeks like a tavern floor, but glows warm as a June sunrise. Sister Irmgard's journal brags it, outshone the abbey's own reliquary. The current abbess disagrees, bans the stench, plus your hair starts falling out. Quirky trivia alert: they hid pigments in communion wine casks. A bishop once drank heavenly cerulean thinking it Lenten austerity. His teeth stayed blue through Pentecost. Coincidence or divine commentary? You stash azurite in a vinegar jug, catch the cellar master sipping it. His outraged spit stains the floor Byzantium. Their masterwork, a gospel's border that changed hues with the weather. Humidity turned roses from blush to bruise. You find scrap vellum reacting to breath, faded vines greening as you exhale. Is it lichen magic or passive-aggressive mold? The debate gets heated. Sister Walburga lobs a gesso pot. Survival tip from the fringe grind: dried mouse blood for lively flesh tones. You attempt it, but the mice stage a revolt. Bite marks decorate your ochre jar, furry vengeance. Stick to pomegranate rinds. Final clue: a mural behind the refectory. Peeling plaster reveals layers, pagan symbols ghosting beneath saints. A sister's joke or confession. You trace a faded triple spiral. Your fingertips come away sunflower yellow. Some colors refuse to stay buried. Midnight experiments go wrong. Your sky vault blue drips onto the prior's cat. Now it's a theological crisis. Is a cerulean tabby a sacrament or sacrilege? You redirect blame. Suggest it's the second, Cummings' new aesthetic. They vanished, but their palette lingers. Your sleeves hide lichen purple, your nails bloom woad. In the scriptorium's gloom, their hues hum, a chromatic heresy too beautiful to burn. Tomorrow, you'll try painting with lightning bugs. The abbess's wrath can't outshine that. You swipe soot from your brow. It smears into a beard, mirroring the devil in the margins. There he lounges, tail coiled around the capital D, in Deus, blowing raspberries. At Psalm 23, mainstream manuscripts love these doodles. Historians call them marginalia, harmless scribbler's whimsy. But this imp's eyes follow your quill, as if judging your shaky attempt at gold leaf. Egg yolk binder honey for sheen urine fermenting by the window. The recipe's clear, but your mix curdles like demonic custard. A novice claims she saw Sister Gertrude use chicken blood, but her credibility's shot. Last week, she mistook a farting goat for a poltergeist. The real trick in the whiskers. Medieval pigments crackle over time. A fox's tail frays into hundreds of inky spikes. You cheat using a cat's claw to etch hairs into wet paint. The prioress inspects your work, squints at the imp's disturbingly anatomical grin. Too many teeth, she mutters, crosses herself twice. Quill scrapes uncover secrets under the pinky nail-sized devil earlier drafts of decency. A halo erased. Wings scrubbed raw. Historians still argue whether nuns snuck heresy into holy texts or just found fanged critters fun. You test both theories, draw a bishop with donkey ears. The ink accidentally spills. That quirky smell. Turns out, some reds used fermented garlic to repel silverfish. Your desk reeks like a vampire's kitchen. Novices swear the imp sneezes when they chant vespers too loud. You set honey traps for pests, catch 3 beetles, and the sub-prioress looking for mead. Rebellion isn't all fire and brimstone. A stipple of gold dots disguises a donkey's ass in the tea of transubstantiation. The trick's older than the convent. Monks hid naughty bits in carpet pages for centuries. Your version's tamer, just a grumpy cat wearing a mitre. Still, Sister Hildegard gasps, claims it blinked at her during matins. They never taught you this in art history class, how to grind lapis while fielding confessions from panicked novices. Brother Matthias winked at me. Is that a venial sin or a felony? You suggest sketching him as a toad in strictest confidence. The resulting doodle's too accurate. He avoids the scriptorium for weeks. The debate rages over goose versus swan quills. Swans give smoother lines, but stealing feathers risks beak-based vengeance. You compromise, pluck a drowsy gander mid-snooze. His honk of betrayal echoes through the cloister, a soundtrack to your finest initial yet. The devil's new goatee, meticulously rendered with a single hog bristle brush. Midnight in the scriptorium, your candle gutters, shadows turn ivy tendrils into clutching claws. Paint water ripples. Did the imp just shift its tail? You invoke Saint Luke, patron of artists and forgers. The quiet that follows feels smirking. You pack up brushes, find your best squirrel hair tool knotted into a noose. Coincidence or hellish critique of your shading technique? The solution's obvious. Dunk the offending brush in holy water. Now it writes in faintly glowing text, a problem for tomorrow's exhausted self. As dawn stains the courtyard pink, you realize the truth. Holiness and mischief share the same cramped desk. Both require patience, precision, and lying through your teeth when the abbess asks about that peculiar smell. The devil's in the details, but so's the divine. The leather binding creaks like a ship's hull as you strap your manuscript to a mule's swaying back each gold leaf, capital, flashing farewell. Books outlive their makers here. Embarking on pilgrimages parchment nuns could never take. That grass-stained page, trodden by pilgrims, feet at Rocamatter, smoothed by a queen's thumbs in Paris. Your marginal imp grins wider with every league traveled a stowaway in holy cargo. Merchants claim they transport psalters, but really trade in hidden maps. A smuggler once paid 22 sheep for a bestiary, its griffon illustrations marking underground routes. You heard he got caught when a border guard recognized Sister Agnes, rose-bordered. Turns out beautiful lettering makes terrible spy code. Rain streaks the ink as your book crosses the Alps, snowmelt warping Vellum into miniature mountain ranges. Some monk in Verona will iron it flat, muttering about reckless northern scribes. Did you intentionally leave that smudge shaped like Denmark? Historians still argue whether stains are sacramental wine spills or proof of clandestine annotation. Barges carry your work down the Seine, the rhythm of oars seeping into the text. A scholar in Rouen swears Isaiah's prophecies sync with rowers' chants. You wonder if he's noticed the mermaid you hid in the water. Initial. Her scales colored with beetle shell shine. Fun fact, the Sutton Hoo treasures were almost lost forever, until someone reused the manuscript's wax tablet covers as firewood. True story. Your own book narrowly escaped becoming fish wrap in Marseille, saved when a thief noticed Mary's face peering through his sack. Gold leaf makes terrible camouflage. Ever seen a book used as collateral for a tavern tab? You have now. Your Genesis folio bought 3 flagons and a chicken. Though the hen later nested in Exodus, the barmaid kept the Song of Songs, said the red capitals matched her new brothel sign. Pieties, a flexible currency. Mice gnaw corners into lacework. Silverfish etch cryptic footnotes. One tome returned with bite marks, forming a perfect Hebrew. Shin, forcing the abbess to host a rabbi for translation. He complimented your peacock ink, left a dove doodle in the guest book. War's the great equalizer. Your Lives of Saints shielded a mercenary's heart from arrows, survived bloodstains better than the soldier did. Now it's displayed in Krakow, labeled reliquary of the warrior martyr. You've debated confessing, but the collection plate's never been heavier. Monks in Wittenberg debate Luther by day, giggle at your doodles by night. A fat bishop drawn to resemble their abbot gets huge laughs until someone notices his robes match Erasmus' latest satire. Protestant humor's always been hit or miss. The quirk. A Venetian doge used your sacramentary as a cheese platter, leaving dairy outlines of the 10 Commandments. Experts think it's divine intervention. You know it's because he skimped on servers at Pentecost brunch. Burned pages stowaway to Constantinople, surviving on a spice cart. Your charred Ezekiel fragment ends up in a sultan's library, surrounded by Arabic marginalia, debating if fiery chariots count as early drone warfare. Margin to margin, east and west bicker in perfect symmetry. 3 centuries pass. Your book molders in a Yorkshire attic until a chimney sweep's child finds it. She traces the gilded vines, leaves fingerprints on revelation that future carbon dating will mislabel as monastic sweat residue. The imp winks from his D, still judging newcomers. That coffee stain on Leviticus. A tipsy earl mistook it for toilet parchment during a particularly spirited hunt. His annotated critique, "Thou shalt not bore guests," remains academia's pettiest commentary. You'd be proud if you weren't busy being dead. Tonight, your manuscript glows under museum glass, while tourists yawn past. A student lingers, recognizing the cat-haired brushstrokes from their art thesis. Their latte steams the case, briefly fogging the imp into a Rorschach blob. Some journeys never end, just blur at the edges. Damp crawls up the walls like an unholy tide, the mold's yellow fingers reaching for your unfinished psalter. Each spore feasts on sheepskin and devotion, transforming Gloria in excelsis Deo into a fuzzy green silence. You press chamomile sachets between pages, knowing the herbs delay rot better than any prayer. That weird stain spreading across Psalm 91 started as a novice's tear during matins, now erasing whole verses like God's own correction fluid. Half the abbey swears they hear ghostly vowels hissing from the blot. Skeptics blame the cellarer's bad cider. Truths somewhere between miracles and mold toxicity. Historians still debate whether Cistercian watermark smudges represent defective papermaking or secret critiques of papal authority. Your favorite, the drooping lily, some claim, hides a nun's portrait of her forbidden greyhound. Carbon dating just calls it a spilled ink Tuesday. Watch those iron gall letters, their acidic bite sinking deeper with each rainfall. Last summer, a capital M ate clean through a commandment sheet, left Moses holding half a stone tablet. The bishop's envoy called it demonic erosion. You called it bad chemistry. Ever tried reading a psalter through candle smoke? The soot reshapes words, turning mercy into merchant, grace into graceless. Whole theologies mutate when fire and vellum keep secrets. That gnawing sound, just mice editing Ecclesiastes with their teeth. Fun fact, Byzantine nuns stored manuscripts in oil-soaked cloth to repel silverfish. Worked great until someone mistook a fuel stash for Lenten hummus dip. Let's just say the convent's lamp inventory suffered. Your masterpieces' edges curl inward, a dying flower protecting its last petal. Touch it wrong and entire illuminations flake off. Saint Catherine's face flecking into martyr dust. Crushed lapis lazuli, once worth its weight in gold, now powders the floor like sad confetti. Sunlight's the killer here. Those once vibrant reds now fade to corpse-lip pink. Mary's azure robe bleached into a ghostly smudge. You tried moving the scriptorium, only to find shadowy corners already claim. There's a hole in the Song of Songs where moth wings beat too close to candle. Now it reads, "For love is strong as death, if death had 6 legs and a vendetta." The abbess calls it divine metaphor. You call for better bug nets. Salvage missions get desperate. That time Sister Marguerite tried washing mildew off with goat's milk, created a cottage cheese palimpsest. Took weeks to scrape the stink off Proverbs. Peek inside the preserved Waldensian hymnal. It's vellum, warped into a topographic map of neglect. Rain-swollen valleys divide psalms, creases deepen into canyons splitting. Hosanna from Hallelujah. A drop of candle wax becomes Mount Sinai in miniature, sacred geography, born of accidents. Critics claim mold patterns resemble demonic faces. But you've seen enough leaky roofs to recognize water's dark humor. Still, that Rorschach beard on St. Jerome does look suspiciously detailed. Rebinding helps until the stupid glue. Some bright spark used honey-based adhesive. Now Psalms 23 through 27 are permanently stuck with dead ants. Nothing says, "The Lord is my shepherd," like entombed insects mid-banquet. Night is kindest. By candle glow, edge damage softens into shadow, torn folios become lacework, filtering moonlight. You pretend the gaps are intentional God's own redactions, leaving room for new mysteries. Dawn ruins the illusion. Sunbeams spotlight every foxing spot, each brown bloom a verdict on your failed stewardship. The page sighs as you turn it, one more hairline crack in Leviticus. Sleep claims you with ink-stained fingers. The manuscript's slow dissolution mirroring your own fraying edges. Tomorrow, the rot continues patient, impartial, hungry. Candlelight flickers across a hymn's staves, those 5 parallel roads mapping a forbidden journey. Your fingertip follows neumes, the shark fin curves guiding voices long silenced. Or so you thought. Tonight, the ink whispers differently, a dotted sequence spelling north. In intervals only a choir girl's ear could catch. 10th century Benedictines standardized musical notation, but clever nuns reshaped it. That cluster of Virga marks aligns perfectly with loose floorstones leading to the apple orchard. Historians still argue whether squiggles in the Margam Abbey gradual charted escape routes, or just Sister Rhiannon's drunken lutenist boyfriend. Follow the ascending scale. It mirrors cellar tunnels flooded since the Black Death. Your favorite oddity, the wolf tone folio. Certain chant frequencies reportedly agitated livestock, though skeptics blame Sister Agnes tone-deaf soprano. Try humming the Phrygian mode near the granary. See if the mule kicks in triple meter. Irony tastes bitter here. You're preserving a hymnal that once helped others flee preservation. Every mendied tear mutes a pathway, flattening C-sharp squiggles into compliant lines. Careful with that gold leaf. Legend says the shimmer confused pursuers' eyes under moonlight. Notice the false clef on folio 42. Rotate the page sideways. 5 sharps become charcoal sketches of the river ford. 10th century Google Maps, but with more Latin puns. Sing the antiphon backward. The vowels sketch a peasant's face in your mind's eye. Was he a lover? A smuggler? A wine merchant with decent prices? Scholars found 11 names encrypted in Psalm 150's Alleluias, though half defy translation. Is Edeva a person or a recipe for mead hidden in solfege syllables? Carbon dating can't explain the chili pepper stain on Dies Irae, medieval Europe's hottest melody. Your quill hovers over a custos mark, that tiny guide note at a line's end. Tradition says it points to heaven, but this one's angled toward a boarded-up window. Scratch the vellum. Beneath Amen lies an older barbed wire symbol even the abbess couldn't purge. Restoration's a paradox. Fixing, the composite rhythm erases a marginal donkey drawing, some nun's inside joke about a priest's braying sermon. You compromise, preserve the animal, but remove the satirical halo. Church auditors check for heresy, not penmanship. That missing folio. Folk tailies claim it's sewn into a traveling minstrel's hat lining. Humming it causes spontaneous dancing in taverns. More likely, it lines a bishop's chamber pot. Still, you imagine the rogue page out there somewhere. Its melody drunk on freedom. Midnight worsens the metaphors. Chanting nuns become ghosts, mouthing escape plans. Candle shadows reshape quavers into pickaxe handles. Even the Latin taunts you, clamavi, meaning, I have cried out, or I have hidden in a Palermo cipher variant. Dawn brings delusion's end. You rub oxgall ink from your eyes. The staff lines snap back into prison bars. But for one breath last night, you swear the music didn't just rise upward, it pointed elsewhere. You trace a gilded vine, its leaves razor-edged despite the soft honey glow. Not decoration armament. In 12th century Salzburg, crafty nuns mixed crushed glass into gold leaf glue, a shimmering defense against thieving bishops. That's no metaphor. Radiographs proved it in a 2007 Munich study, though some still insist it's just poorly sifted pigment. Fingernail moons catch light as you tilt the page. The halo above St. Agatha bristles with microscopic spikes. Coincidence? Maybe. But 15 convents records mention pricking the impious gaze through blessed metallics. Historians still argue whether these were doctrinal barbs or petty revenge against critics of their artistry. Your breath fogs the vellum. Note how the thornwork aligns with cracks in the abbey's eastern wall, a structural weakness disguised as vine tendrils. Clever girls. Gold was power, but knowledge of load-bearing stones. That weaponized architecture. Warm beeswax drips on your sleeve. The scriptorium reeks of quinces rotting in December frost. Or is that Sister Hedwig's infamous turnip wine seeping through floorboards? Either way, it pairs poorly with rabbit skin glue. Here's your favorite heresy. Folio 33's rose window. Peer close, each delicate petal ends in a fleur-de-lis shaped like a cog-gum anus. Korean swords in a Bavarian psalter. A pilgrim's doodle, secret crusader code. The convent traded with Hanseatic merchants, but Seoul sat 3 empires east. Yet there, it glows, golden blades amidst lilies. Rebellion thrives in the minuscule. That tiny mouse gnawing a bishop's crozier in the margin. Cute, until you spot the bishop's face matching Abbot Gerhardt's portraiture downstairs. Coincidences compound. Gerhardt banned fig tarts after a, let's say, digestive incident involving the abbess. Note the mouse's crumb-strewn belly. Midnight unspools danger. Your magnifier catches Latin text hidden in gilt spirals. Psalm 91's treading upon the lion rewritten as stomping the lying one. Scorch marks frame the verse, but no fire ever scarred this page. Invisible ink, nuns reportedly used lemon juice and desperation. A draft slices through the broken window, gilding flakes rise like vengeful pollen. You instinctively block them. Wise choice. Salzburg's archivist lost an eye to a flutter of holy shrapnel in 1923. Medieval OSHA violations strike again. Dawn approaches, your lamp dims alongside subtlety. What seemed thorned vines now scream their intent. Barbed wire Aventla letter, mocking containment. Turn the page, and a single gilded drop smears your thumb. Not gold, blood oxidized black. They signed their protest in hemoglobin. The abbey bell tolls, a C-sharp vibration loosening dust from rafters. Centuries fall away. For one breath, you're not restoring history, but receiving instructions. That blood-gilt thumbprint matches the exact size and placement of a keystone above the crypt. Candles gutter. Your laughter echoes too loud. All this time, archivists cataloged their art as compliant, while revolution glittered plain sight. The real joke, those spiked halos worked. We remember Gerhardt as a glutton, his enemies as artists. Gold doesn't tarnish. Neither does spite. Cold stone kisses your shoulder. You've backed into what pilgrims called the bride's wall. No marriage bed here. Just 3 handprints sunk into plaster, each finger trough filled with dried lavender. 13th century, anchoresses pressed themselves into these stones during walling up ceremonies. A mainstream fact they'll mention on your guided tour tomorrow. But guides won't whisper how Sister Mora's mortar recipe included egg yolk and brick dust. For that just right blush, your flashlight catches sickle-shaped grooves near the ceiling. Not tool marks, nails dragged through wet plaster during summer fevers. One woman's journal describes carving, angels only visible at prime angle of sweat. Historians still argue whether this was divine inspiration or heat stroke hallucinations. Breathe shallow. Air here tastes of turned earth and bergamot. They buried anchoresses with candle, quince, and their last ink pot. Your heel grinds something brittle, a walnut shell, charred black. Midnight snack or charcoal storage, both, if Margaretha, the stubborn's pantry lists, are to be believed. That page-sized portal. Rotting oak now, original shutters bore peepholes for passing notes. A 1423 letter complains of a novice's overlong treatise on turnip theology, blocking the view. Margin doodles show a nun's eye rolling heavenward. Captioned God, forgive my impatience, and hers. Scrape your knuckle raw on a protruding brick. Worth it. The reddish dust reveals lapis lazuli, crushed gemstones smuggled into wall plaster. For God's glory, or because staring at gray walls for decades drives one to decorate. Peer closer, faded dog portraits emerge, their collars bearing names like Biscuit and Heretic. Your phone's glow feels sacrilegious, but necessary. UV light exposes 4 layers of frescoes beneath whitewash. Top layer, proper saints. Second, geometric tantrums. Third, a 7-legged lamb, captioned Brother Paul's Nightmare, Pentecost. Fourth, something that might be Adam and Eve, if Eden featured suspiciously detailed asparagus patches. Rain seeps through the window grill, each droplet smudging centuries of candle, smoke into new Rorschachs. You almost miss the intentional marks. Tiny hands etched near the floor, some missing pinkies. Records confirm Anchoress's lost fingers to frostbite regularly. But 3 nuns signed their names as Nine-Knuckled Margaret in cookbook margins. There's the joke. A half-erased caricature of St. Jerome's lion, except it's vomiting rainbows into a chalice. Scandalous, until you recall Jerome's lion did supposedly cure gout by licking feet. Medieval humor, equal parts piety and prank. Wasp nests crumble under your touch, papery layers, revealing embedded flax fibers. Recycling parchment scraps into building materials. Clever. Less clever. Using hymn sheets for nest insulation. A 1298 note bemoans bees chanting Veni Creator instead of working. Priorities. Your elbow bumps a shelf trigger. False wall. No rotary mechanism, its grooves polished smooth. Turn it. Light floods through 7 pinholes, projecting constellations onto the opposite wall. Ursa Major becomes a dancing bear holding a mitre. Coincidence or coded astrology. Bishops banned zodiac studies in 1215, but star charts kept appearing in privy renovation plans. Touch the bear's nose. Plaster flakes, exposing mother-of-pearl inlay. Luxurious, until you remember Anchoress's traded embroidery for supplies. 1 invoice lists 3 handkerchiefs, W. Christ's tears, pearls, for 1 pound of raisins. Fair, the ledger includes 2 wine stains, shaped like shrugs. Moth wings flutter against your neck. Annoying, until you notice they're clustering around a nearly invisible fish painted above the door. Iron gall ink recipe books mention using moth-attractant oils to test saintly vitality. Hungry insects supposedly flocked to truly holy images. Tonight's verdict. Either St. Sita's trout is authentic, or someone spiked the pigment with honey. Damp warps the floorboards, they creak, notes from Veni Emmanuel, harmless acoustics, until you step on the wrong plank and the D-sharp echoes through crypts below. Rats skitter. Some say Anchoresses communicated through floor hums. Others insist it's why they begged for thicker straw mats. Your shadow stretches into the portal, now moonlit. Perfect for seeing the hate mail. Yes, smeared under 12th century birdlime, someone etched Amen is silent for a reason beside a grumpy owl. Passive aggression survives centuries best, it seems. Hours dissolve. You've inhaled enough gypsum to sneeze in Middle High German. 1 final discovery. Fingernail etchings along the windowsill. Weather-worn, but legible. A shopping list. Salt, indigo, madder root. Tell Joseph stop singing. Priorities again. Dawn's first blush hits the portal, projecting a fiery rectangle onto your chest. For 1 heretical moment, you're the illuminated manuscript. Smoke curls into your nostrils before you see its source, blackened grooves scoring the flagstones. This isn't medieval cooking grease. These burns spiral like frantic handwriting, a language of desperation. Your flashlight reveals puddles of fused glass where inkwells exploded in heat. Mainstream history tells of Cromwell's troops torching libraries, but they missed the real pyre. Convents burned their own treasures to keep them from desecration. Your shoe grinds something gritty, powdered vellum ash, clinging to centuries-old honey, spilled during the feast of Saint Bridget. Quirky. Try this. Radiocarbon dating on one casket of ashes showed traces of saffron and squirrel urine. Combat arson with chemistry. The nuns doused flames with whatever fouled liquids they had. A warped iron grate lies askew, its hinges melted into Dura-esque drips. Below, stairs coil into what archives tactfully call the baking chamber. Your phone light quivers. Air here feels chewed, thick, with the ghosts of oxygen devoured by flames. Half-charred quills crunch underfoot. One still wears its feather, singed to a carcinogenic puff. Your sleeve brushes the wall, leaving a sweat smudge that mirrors the shape of a nun's palm print from 1536. Congealed tallow drips form stalactites overhead. Each droplet contains flecks of gold leaf. Sacrilege or salvation. Depends who won the siege. You freeze. Ahead, a stone slab etched with claw marks. Not animal, human nails, judging by the curves. Scratch-counting calendars. Defiance. The grooves cluster around a crude sketch of a phoenix, or maybe a chicken mid-mold. Historians still argue whether Sister Ingrid's final act was metaphor or madness. A rustle makes you jump. Just moths, their wings powdery with ash. They flock to a surviving patch of fresco. A saint holding flames inside her ribcage. Beeswax candles burned cleaner, but convent records mention using fish oil for emergency illuminations. Translation. Smoke screens. Your knee hits a hidden ledge. False floor. No, a sort of dumbwaiter pulley, its ropes petrified into charcoal twists. Inside, 7 miniature cookbooks fused together by heat. Cheese stains survive, where text didn't. Ductile testament to midnight study snacks. There's the gallows humor. A marginal doodle of a nun roasting marshmallows over a burning Bible. Anachronistic, until you recall medieval sugar sculptures called subtleties were shaped like religious scenes. God's edible irony. Palms flat on the sooty wall, you feel vibrations. Not machinery singing. Somewhere, a choir rehearses Libera Me, its low notes shaking dust from the ceiling. Acoustics here warp the melody into something jagged, like a lullaby sung through broken teeth. Climb over a collapsed beam. Its end reveals tool marks, not from axes, but from repeated rosary bead strikes. Wood density analysis proved nuns wore grooves into devotional surfaces over decades. A crossbeam in York Minster has similar scars. But here, the rhythm suggests panic, not prayer. A glint catches your eye shards of a stained glass flask buried in ash. Apothecary vessels often held ink, but this one reeks of elderberry wine. Emergency sacraments. The cork remains teeth marks fossilized in its surface. Bend closer. Something winks in the debris. A melted silver thimble. Its surface impressed with psalms in mirror writing, secret letter stamps for wax seals, or a nun's rebellious act of textual communion pressing scripture into calluses. Sudden chill, you found the airshaft. Moonlight falls through its grill, illuminating a half-scorched scroll case. Inside, marriage contracts for books. Yes, a 1512 document wedding a psalter to a book of hours, complete with dowry notes, so they may fortify each other against the darkness. Sneezing fits hit each explosion of dust reveals new colors. Ultramarine, vermilion. These aren't random pigments. Spectral analysis matched this ash to the lost Carmina Clara Codex, its paints chemically distinct from any monastic workshop. Stolen hues from Byzantium, or alchemical hubris. Your thumb finds grooves in the ceiling, carved letters, salt, soot, stupor, grocery list or arson recipe. Cross-referenced with winery ledgers, stupor was slang for grape must, which doubles as fire retardant. Resourceful, these pyromaniac saints lean against what seems a solid wall. It exhales. Plaster dust cascades, revealing a cavity packed with goose bones. Not food waste. Quill barrels, the hollow femurs, still hold ink-stained pumice stoppers. They wrote while they burned. Of course they did. The horror sinks its teeth slowly. That blackened spot by the hearth. Not a shadow, a nun-shaped void where Sister Agnes combusted so completely. Her outline fused with carbon and psalm fragments. CT scans show minute bone shards in the mortar. Her final interment. Your phone dies. Darkness swallows the room, then retreats. Phosphorescence blooms where your footsteps disturbed bioluminescent fungus growing on parchment pulp. The nun's last joke, a glow-in-the-dark library, only visible to those who linger past despair. Dawn's first light filters through the airshaft. It ignites a charred wooden box you hadn't noticed. Inside, half-melted wax tablets, Latin exercises, and a child's drawing of a house with 3 smoke-plumed chimneys. Did a novice bring her baby sister's art into the inferno? Or did they all become children again in that final, flickering hour? Ash clings to your lips. It tastes of lampblack and verb tenses, future perfect participles reduced to carbon. Somewhere, a forgotten rhyme whispers, what fire sculpts, time cannot erase. You leave the window open as you go, inviting the wind to rewrite what remains. A fluttering page catches your sleeve, its edge curled like a jester's shoe. You smooth the vellum, and there it is, a fox in priestly vestments, lecturing a flock of goslings, their beaks open in pious dopiness. Gold leaf halos hover above all, even the predator's head. Mainstream archives love these doodles. 90% of liturgical texts have drunk unicorns or armor-clad snails in margins. But this, it's satire with teeth. Your thumb grazes the fox's whiskers. They're made from real hair pressed into the ink. Quirky fact. X-rays revealed one nun's cheek smudge under the paint. She blew on wet pigment, leaving DNA evidence of a grin mid-snort. Nearby, a mouse steals a communion wafer while a cat bishop naps. Historians still argue whether these were inside jokes or doctrinal dissent, the medieval equivalent of posting memes in your boss's Slack. A drop of your sweat warps the parchment. Quick, blot it with your sleeve. Too late. Saint Felicity's face bloats into a carnival mask, her halo dribbling like egg yolk. You half expect a cartoon, Bleck speech bubble. Wind hisses through the arrow slit. It carries a whiff of stewed turnips from the refectory ghost kitchen. The page flips itself, revealing a donkey playing a lute made from a monk's tonsured scalp. Strings, dyed gut. The artist signed it, a tiny bee shaped like a buttocks. Candlelight betrays prankster fingerprints. Here, a saint's beard extends into a phallus vine, engulfing a prudish-looking dragon. 3 centuries later, some Victorian rebinder glued the corner down, their horrified, starch-stiff signature still visible. Moral of the story: censorship leaves the stickiest stains. You crouch, there's a thumbprint in the margin. Carbon dated to 1325, same year Pope John XXII banned coffee as Satan's brew. Coincidence? Doubtful. The print overlaps with a nun's doodle of a demon sipping espresso from a martyr's skull. A spider scuttles over King David's harp, its shadow becoming Goliath's erect nose. Let's call it a nose. Your laugh echoes too loud until you spot graffiti on the ceiling. Marjorie was here. Carved in 1412, 100 years before Luther's theses. The fox page rustles again. Flip it, there's punchline beneath the joke. A distraught badger, wearing a papal tiara, sweeps up shattered commandments. Mosaic tiles form the word redacted. In is that Yiddish. Someone mixed up the alphabets again. Parchment crumbles at your touch, wrong soap pH last Tuesday haunting you. But here's the kicker. Under infrared, the Fox's Gospels quote actual heretic texts. Harmless doodle, secret manifesto. Both, probably. Your elbow bumps an ink pot modern, thank God. But the spill recreates a Rorschach, nun shape, winking. Appropriate. Beneath your feet, floorboards creak the first bars of Elham Armee, a war chant monks turned into liturgy. Even the building's in on the joke. Moonlight shifts, the fox's eyes now glare at you. Down, boy. You're not the one who wrote Feed the Poor. Not your ego under Abbot What's-His-Face's portrait. Between the lines, scribbled recipes for dandelion wine. Suffering builds character, but tipsy nuns build better punchlines. Dawn bleeds through the cloister windows. Somewhere, a novice giggles echoes of a joke that outlived empires. You pocket a fallen quill, its nib bent into a smile. Your stolen quill warms against your ribs, its crooked nib pricking through your shirt like a metronome. Dawn air still smells of yesterday's ink, and something sharper. Burnt feathers. You follow the stench to a vellum sheet pinned under a rusted astrolabe. Half an angel emerges from the parchment, one wing feathered in silver point, the other a ghostly outline. Mainstream fact. 15th century scribes used silver wire to sketch, tarnishing into haunting gray over centuries. But this is a stabbing, not a drawing. The stylus gouges deepen near the torso, as if the nun's hand spasmed mid-revelation. Your pinky traces an aborted halo, catches on something gritty. Quirky tidbit. Conservators found breadcrumbs fossilized in this manuscript's binding. A hungry artist's midnight snack, or communicant wafers repurposed as erasers. The page hums under your palm, kinetic energy bleeding from 7 unfinished brushstrokes. A drop of your breath fog models the margin. Suddenly, you're both archaeologist and vandal. The dampness spreads, revealing phantom letters under the surface. Ama, it begins. Amer, amass, amalgamate. Historians still argue whether this was a love note, shopping list, or heresy aborted by a cough. Wind slaps the shutter. It's the sound of a palm hitting vellum. Your candle dies. In the bruised twilight, the angel's finished wing seems to beat. Silver lines flutter like escape artist threads. You recall Sister Petra's diary entry from 1493. Let no work be completed, lest pride poison its purpose. Was this self-sabotage, or the ultimate humble brag? Lightning flash no, just a novice's lantern bobbing past. It illuminates the disaster. 5 pots of pigment hardened into tidal waves, vermilion cresting over lapis, egg-tempera glaciers somewhere beneath, the outline of a human handprint pressed in panic or ecstasy. Carbon dating can't decide. You kneel, temple pressing against cold stone. Your eyelash lands on the angel's empty face. Through the microscope of personal blindness, you glimpse numerals scratched into the parchment scalp. VII, X, MCDLXXII. The day before Constantinople fell. Calculation error. Grocery tally. A spider descends on a silk cord, living pencil line dodging your nostril. Its shadow becomes the missing wingtip. For 3 breaths, the masterpiece finishes itself in chiaroscuro. Then, the 8-legged collaborator absconds with a crumb of sacramental bread. Your neck cricks upward. The ceiling mural mocks with completion, fat cherubs chewing on unfinished thoughts. One vomits a rainbow onto a bishop's mitre. Typical. Below your knees, floor tiles tell the real story. 9 uneven grooves where a stool leg rocked in mortal urgency. Moonblood seeps through the rose window, splotching the angel into a Rorschach test. You see, a goose juggling chasubles, a pregnant abbess, a sword swallowing a cathedral. The vellum hisses as you lift it, partners in crime now. Acid from your skin begins erasing the Alma. Forever, somewhere a bell chokes mid-toll. Your teeth taste of quicksilver and stolen communion wine. The last thing you see, a single hair white as vellum curl across the void where the angel's heart should be. It spells Amen in cursive. Your thumb brushes the vellum, catches on a thread. Not spider silk this time, but spun gold unraveling from the page's edge. It climbs your arm like a vine, tugging you toward shadowed arches. Mainstream fact: medieval nuns often stitched embroidered tabs into manuscripts, cloth tongues marking sacred passages. But this is the book bleeding tapestry, moth-chewed curtains part. Before you, a loom wears parchment instead of warp threads. Sheaves of psalms stretch taut, their inked letters acting as a pattern. Quirky tidbit: 14th century Venetian nuns secretly wove silk threads dyed with crushed altar wine, their crimson hues deepening as the sacramental liquid aged. You inhale, catch fermented grapes beneath centuries of dust. The shuttle darts, its brass tip glints like a censer. With each pass, Ezekiel's chariot wheels manifest in wool, exactly matching the adjacent illumination. Your pinky traces the border where parchment transitions to textile. Same hand, different nun, a joint madness of thread and ink. Historians still argue whether these fused works were collaborations or the hallucinations of sleep-deprived scribes. Rain leaks through the vaulted ceiling, drops flee down tapestry mountains. Gold leaf runs like molten heresy. You blink, suddenly the wet spots align. Drip, drip, shaping St. Lucia's eyes across 3 mediums, painted, embroidered, and water-distorted. Her gaze follows you, a triple indictment. A thimble rolls underfoot. Inside, tiny conjectures, parchment shavings, fishbone needles, a desiccated honeybee. You pocket it, because who doesn't need a 600-year-old apiarist's bribe? The loom creaks. One psalm snaps, releasing a groan that could be wood, or a long-trapped vowel. Frost etches the edge of a woven Madonna. Her cloak's blue comes alive, lapis knots unspooling into your lungs. You cough azure. Would have killed to have that for 8th grade science fairs. The color clings to your molars as you bite down, metallic, sacramental. Through the frost, holes emerge. Not moth bites, deliberate gaps in the weave. Your breath steams through them, projecting embroidery onto the far wall. Suddenly, a donkey plays lute over Proverbs 17:28. Even a fool, the text begins. The rest smolders under a wine silk eclipse. Moonlight shifts. The donkey's silhouette becomes a nun mid-curtsy, her wimple flaring into wings. Footsteps echo above. Threads recoil. Your left holding a severed needle, its eye still threaded with Gregorian notation. Hum Ave Maris Stella, and the C-sharp vibrates, plucking your uvula like a lyre string. A chest gapes nearby. Inside, fabrics folded into origami truths. A chasuble becomes a screaming rabbit. An altar cloth blooms into a geometric stink bug. Fold 73 reveals a hidden pouch. 7 sapphire pins piercing a walnut. Quirky tidbit: Cistercian nuns allegedly weaponized jewelry, sewing gemstones into hems to blind nosy bishops during inspections. The final fold traps your hand. Silk constricts, a liturgical boa. You struggle. The fabric tightens, spelling miserere in braille across your wrist. Cold creeps up your arm. gold thread sizzles where it touches sweat, the metallic stench of divine buyer's remorse. Across the room, the tapestry ripples. A stitched camel squeezes through the eye of a needle, its woolly smirk stuffed with illegible psalms. You're witnessing textual hernia. The fig leaf over Genesis parts to reveal not anatomy, but a tiny ledger. Interest rates, indulgence prices, candle tariffs. Dawn arrives as a stain. Scarlet bleeds across the loom. Your stolen thimble burns. Hurriedly, you drop it into an inkwell. The plink echoes like a coin in a bribed saint's palm. The liquid writhes. Up floats a miniature hair shirt, stitched with Compline antiphons. It shrivels upon air contact. Last glance, the tapestry now depicts your own arrival. Threadbare you kneels, plucking lice from an embroidered codex. One louse waves, you wave back. Art mirrors life, mirrors lunacy. How comforting. The door slams, a nun's cough sends you scurrying. Your heel grinds something brittle. The honeybee. Its abdomen splits, releasing a scrap of vellum. 3 knots keep the devil out, it reads. Or maybe 3 knots. The ink's too faded. You swallow the fragment. Let gastroenterologists of 2524 puzzle that reliquary. Rain dries. The loom disassembles itself, a wooden skeleton retreating into cobwebs. Only the smell remains, wet sheep, oxidized mercury, and the ghost of an 8th note. Your hands ache with phantom calluses. Right index finger permanently arched, a quill's crook etched into flesh. Somewhere behind stone, a choir harmonizes with weaving song. You hum along until the melody becomes a nursery rhyme. Prick your finger, spill the wine, stitch the wound with Judas, twine. A shudder rolls through you, more tapestry than human now. The kind conservators will debate in heated symposia. Shadows congeal. What's your exit? Follow the snapped thread. Chew through the tapestry. Light a devotional candle and wait for spontaneous combustion. You choose option C. The flame gulps air, its smoke coiling into a helix of hyacinths and hair. Final vision. Embroidery scissors floating midair. Their blades open a metallic stork's beak. They snip the wick. Darkness rushes in as the wick's red ember arcs, landing where your appendix once dwelled. A relic sears your gut. Future historians will x-ray your bones and whisper. Scholars still argue whether this was art or an elaborate suicide note. Threads dissolve. Dawn's real now, grubby and honest. You exhale linen fibers. Somewhere, a bell rings. Somewhere else, a spider repairs its web with strands of your abandoned awe. Your shoe sticks to the floor. Peeling it up reveals one perfect loop of Unscripted gold thread. You leave it winking there, a semicolon for the next pilgrim. Your shoe's sticky thread stretches as you shuffle forward, a glittering tether to last night's delirium. Stale air greets you like wet parchment pressed to the face. Ahead, a vault door ajar, its rusted hinges whispering urgent psalms. You hesitate. This isn't your convent anymore. Mainstream fact. Harvard conservators recently found 10th century chant lyrics under 16th century paint using something called multispectral imaging. Basically, holy scratch-off tickets. A flashlight beam dances inside. Motes rise, angry galaxies swirling around a figure crouched beneath archways. Their latex glove peels back a corner of mortar. Click. The camera flash freezes their face. Wide eyes, trembling breath. You recognize Dr. Alina Voss from that Netflix doc about Viking underwear. Quirky tidbit. Dig through her trash, and you'll find mango pudding cups labeled radiocarbon samples. She aims her light upward. Gasp. The vault's ceiling squirms with primed over murals. Martyrs bake pies. Saints juggle communion wafers. A particularly sassy Magdalene blows. Pink gum bubbles. Historians still argue whether these were medieval nun doodles or a bored restorer's prank circa 1923. The beam catches your stolen honeybee lodged in a crack. Voss tweezers it out, holds it to her headlamp. The bee's abdomen glows. Inside, a microscript too small for human hands. You squint. 3 knots keep the devil out. Voss licks her thumb. The vellum disintegrates. Her curse rattles loose a brick. Behind it, a leather folio wrapped in what looks like, your Unscripted gold thread. Voss unrolls it. Moonlight hits the page, a cityscape of inked spires and cobblestones. Wait, not ink. Soot and earwax. Quirky tidbit. Convent archives confirm sisters used candle drippings and cerumen as makeshift adhesives. That's devotion, apothecary-grade devotion. Voss sneezes. The folio slips. Pages flutter, each one landing to form a bridge across a puddle. You step without thinking. Paper groans underfoot. The cityscape smudges. Your soul leaves Rome's Colosseum looking like a deflated whoopee cushion. Something pulses beneath the puddle's surface. You kneel, see your reflection warp into a hooded figure. Their hand rises, yours mimics. Contact. Cold bleeds through your palm. They press something into your flesh. A wax seals impression without wax. Historians still argue whether medieval spirit seals were mystical or early examples of thermal branding. Across the vault, Voss scrapes at a fresco. Her chisel chips away a prudish overpaint layer. Beneath, nuns arm wrestling, their wimples flying, faces flushed with glee. The losers getting dunked in an inkwell. You smirk, gallery labels will call this allegorical for centuries. Your phone buzzes. Liturgical ringtone, you're bad. Voss whirls. Light blinds you. She marches closer, boots crunching folio pages into pulp. You backpedal, hit a bookstand. A lectern Bible falls open, its parchment slices your palm. Blood beads. The droplets roll toward a marginalia rabbit. Rabbit's inky paw extends. Catches a drop. It grows, pulsing red. Voss freezes mid-lunge. The rabbit leaps off the page, a crimson blur. It zigzags up her pant leg. She shrieks, bathes at it with hand sanitizer. You'd laugh, but your bleeding hand now writes automatic script on the wall. Find us under the wolf's teeth. Your finger scrawls in Renaissance cursive. Since when do you know Renaissance cursive? Voss gapes, phone already snapping pics. The rabbit explodes into confetti scraps of Psalm 91. You will trample the great lion. A draft slams the vault door. Darkness. You smell licorice and panic. Voss's headlamp dies. Her glasses clatter. She's muttering tenure protections. Your bloody palm itches, the wax seal burning now. Stumbling, you hit a shelf. Books topple. One cracks open, its spine releases a dried caterpillar. Lights flicker. Emergency fluorescents reveal the vault transformed, every surface crawling with your fingers' graffiti. Find us under the wolf's teeth, loops around sigils. And is that a QR code? Voss scans it with trembling phone. Error 404. Of course, the vault's temperature plummets. Breath frosts the air, the word teeth glows blue above the exit. Voss bolts. You linger. Let her think you're crazy. Let her publish papers about stress-induced hallucinations. Your palm throbs 3 notches under the skin. A key, a curse, tomorrow's problem. Outside, dawn leaks through high windows. You wink at a CCTV camera. Let security footage capture your best conspiracy theorist grin. The honeybee's final message gnaws your gut. 3 knots, 3 knots, 3 knots. A janitor's radio blares static. Through it, a whisper song. Burn the thread, light the lead, find the bed where truth was bred. You glance back. The vault door's peephole darkens, an eye peers through. Not Voss. Older, wiser, amused. It blinks, lids heavy with centuries. Your phone dings. Unknown number. Photo attachment. A fresco fragment showing your current pose. Caption. Scholars still argue whether this is prophecy or really good reconnaissance. Pigeons scatter as you exit. Somewhere an angel's laughing. Probably. Maybe a crow. Your shoelace unties itself. Gold thread slithers into a storm drain. Let it. You've got a date with some wolves' dental records. And a hunch that 3 knots means triple negatives. I'm not coming for you, you mutter to the drains. Poetry. You sink into sheets that smell of lavender and distant rain, your ceiling swimming with phantom brushstrokes. That wax seal throbs in your palm like a dormant engine or a time bomb. Mainstream fact. Medieval convents often grew their own pigments, marigold for yolk-based tempera, woad leaves for blue. Your bedside lamp flickers. Shadows become hunched figures bent over vellum. One winks, her quill dips into a pot of, is that earwax mixed with crushed beetles? Quirky tidbit. Sister Matilda's 12th century shopping list includes 3 barrels of snail slime under liturgical supplies. The nun blows on her page. Gold leaf clings to her wimple like fairy dandruff. You blink, she's gone. Only a stain remains. Moonlight through your window hits it just so. Now it's a map. Your clock radio hisses, static. A Gregorian chant bleeds through. Male voices. Wrong. These should be women's. Historians still argue whether surviving manuscripts redacted nuns' compositions or if entire musical lineages were silenced. A pen rolls off your nightstand. You catch it, your fingers twitch. Muscle memory pulls your hand toward the wall. The first stroke bleeds through paint, modern latex, surrendering to ochre underneath. You're drawing a tower, no, a tooth, wolves' teeth. The pen hisses it's out of ink. You shake it. A dried juniper berry falls out. Typical pillow fluff becomes parchment flakes under your cheek. Dreams loom, but not yet. A breeze sneaks through cracked windows, brings the scent of beeswax and iron gall ink. Your eyelids dip. The first brushstroke sounds like a match strike. Candlelight blooms. A dozen nuns huddle around a parchment the size of a grave. Their hands move in shifts. One grinds malachite. Another teases gold leaf thinner than sin. You lean closer, the image resolves. Not a saint. A scribe midyawn, her inky hand, smudging a psalter margin. Her neighbor draws a tiny fist, shaking at the mistake. One nun glances up, her eyes lock with yours across centuries. She smirks, taps the margin. You peer. Between Latin verses, a cartoonish fox sports a PhD hood. Caption: Dr. Volp's thesis, Why Medieval Geese Deserve Tenure. Your laugh sends a tremor through the scene candle's gutter. Too late, you've been spotted. Quills freeze. The head scribe rises, her ruler slaps the desk. Crack. Time fractures. You're back in bed, heart drumming. But your walls tell tales. Faint lines glow where your pen scrawled geometric patterns resolving into sheet music. You hum a note. The nearest staff lines ripple like spider silk. Something clatters. Under the bed, of course. You dangle an arm over the edge of fingertips graze cold metal. A bronze key materializes, its bow shaped like a nun's folded hands. Teeth marks mar the shaft. Your clock flashes 3 a.m. The key doesn't fit any lock you own, but your window now sports a keyhole in the glass. You press cold metal to colder crystal. Turn. Hinges creak, night air spills in. Heavy, with loam and embalming spices. A rope ladder sways outside, strung between here and a mossy turret that wasn't there at sunset. Wind carries voices. 23 skips per line, no, sister, that's a comma. Who put cherubs in the soup recipe? You swing a leg out, pause. Since when do you trust airborne furniture? The ladder's rungs are inked onto moth wings. Each step whispers a different woman's name. Your bare foot touches calligraphy. Hildegard, Perchta, Katerina. Their stories climb your spine, warrior abbesses, herbalists, band poets. Halfway up, the moon snuffs out. Darkness hums, presses close. Your fingers find new words etched into the ladder. But where the rest is scratched out. Helpful, the turret door yawns, a scriptorium in ruins. Dust-choked desks, cracked ink pots, a loom strung with decomposed silk. Yet the smell lives, oxidized copper, oak gall, stubborn hope. Your stolen honeybee zips past, dives into a crack in the floorboards. You follow. Kneeling, you peel back wood, reveal a glass vial of liquid moonlight. Inside, a rolled parchment. The seal, 3 notches matches your palm. You snap the wax, unfurl creamy vellum. A sketch of your bedroom. You're sleeping peacefully as shadow nuns paint constellations on your walls. Marginal note. For when the wolves come bite back with light. Signed with a rabbit's paw print. Dawn's first blush erases the latter. You're back in bed, vial under pillow. Key now a paperclip. Birds mock your disheveled hair. Somewhere Dr. Voss debates tweeting about hallucinogenic convent mold. Let her. You pocket the honeybee, alive again, as you step into daylight. Coffee shop signage flickers, becomes Gothic script. 3 Knots Cafe, where the damned get decaf. The barista winks, her name tag reads Sister Java. 1 sip chicory and communion wine. The cup's heat births a red gold halo in your palm. Bees swarm the sugar jar, spell out, tonight, bring better ink. Rain taps Morse code on pavement. You grin, hoist your umbrella. Its canopy blooms with hastily inked roses, and 1 grumpy badger holding a keep calm and illumine sign. Nightfall will come. The nun's hands never rest, nor will yours when the keyhole reappears. Sleep is for rookies. History's an insomniac with trust issues, and you've got its spare key rusting under your tongue. The lavender clings to your skin, sweet and earthy, as quilts settle like fresh fallen parchment. That throbbing seal in your palm has stilled, now a quiet ember beneath folded linens. Phantom brushstrokes above shift, wolves' teeth softening into willow branches, their amber eyes blinking slow as candle stubs. Moonlight spills through the keyhole gash in your window, now mere glass again, and dust motes dance where a ladder once swayed. Your fingers find the paperclip key, cool metal turned benign, yet humming with nuns' names. Hildegard, Perchta, Katerina. Their stories cushion your skull, featherquill whispers through the pillow. Gregorian chants melt into distant crickets, the radio's static, now a mother's shush. Shadows pooling by the desk stir, but resolve into folded cloaks empty, yet holding the shape of care. You count ink blots on the ceiling, each a closed eye, a patient sentinel. The abandoned turret lingers at the edge of thought, a half-remembered sigh. You taste beeswax and iron gall ink on each breath, smell juniper berries hiding in the sheets. Your walls breathe, faint glyphs rise and fall with your ribs, a lullaby scored for tired bones. Dawn tiptoes in the cafe's phantom sign fades, its Gothic letters unraveling into morning mist. Sister Java's wink lingers, a curl of steam from your cooling mug. Bees in the sugar jar still dream, their wings spelling tomorrow's promises in drowsy loops. You turn the vial of liquid moonlight, watch its glow pool in your cupped hands. The sketched nuns on its parchment nod, their shadow brushes painting safety across your ceiling. Wolves retreat, not vanished, but waiting where darkness gentles into forest. Your clock's ticking slows, each second a gilded margin space for rest. The head scribe's ruler lies dormant, her crack. Now a yawn, a creaking floorboard, a hush. Ink stains your fingertips, or are those constellations birthmarks, maps. Eyelids surrender to the weight of centuries. The scriptorium's heartbeat thrums through your veins. Sleep comes not as theft, but as a borrowed quill. You'll return it at dawn, when walls remember their stories and keyholes bloom anew.